Welcome to r/entitled people stories, where OP's entitled boss learns that it's never okay to harass your employees. My Karen boss kept flirting with me because I'm rich, so I told her husband. I, 27 male, work as a junior analyst at a tech firm. I'm comfortable, but I don't broadcast my finances. However, last year I inherited a significant estate from my grandfather. I didn't change my lifestyle much, but I did start driving his vintage Porsche to the office on Fridays. Enter Karen. She's in her 40s. She's my department head. She's the type of person who treats the office like her personal kingdom and the HR manual like a suggestion. The second she saw the car, her entire demeanor shifted. She went from being a passive-aggressive micromanager to being the cool boss. It started with joking comments about how a young man like me must be lonely in such a big house, and escalated to her leaning over my desk far too closely to check my spreadsheets. The absolute peak of this cringe was when she invited me to a private strategy dinner at a high-end steakhouse. I declined, mentioning I had plans with my girlfriend. She actually scoffed and said, "She's probably just with you for the money. You need a woman who actually understands your status." I complained to HR, and they did nothing because Karen is high value and has been there for a decade. They told me that I was misunderstanding her friendliness. The office holiday party was held at a local country club. Karen was there with her husband, a soft-spoken, genuinely nice man named Dave. Karen spent the whole night ignoring Dave and trying to corner me near the bar, at one point touching my arm and whispering that she could have used a ride in the Porsche tonight. Dave saw it. The look on his face wasn't anger, it was soul-crushing defeat. Later that night, I found Dave sitting alone on the balcony. I'm not a fan of drama, but I hate bullies. We started talking. It turns out Dave quit his high-paying tech job years ago to be a stay-at-home dad. Karen made more than he did, and she refused to put them in daycare, so he didn't get much of a say in it. But he had no idea that she was actively hunting for an upgrade. I didn't just tell him, I showed him. I had saved several non-professional late-night LinkedIn messages that she had sent me. Things like, "Thinking about that suit you wore today, we should really grab that drink soon." And "Dave just doesn't appreciate the finer things like we do." I airdropped the screenshots to Dave right there on the balcony. The next Monday, Karen didn't show up for work. By Wednesday, she was served divorce papers at the office. Dave didn't play nice. He used those screenshots as evidence of her looking for financial abandonment. Since Karen's performance plummeted due to personal stress, and because I finally went to the regional director with the same screenshots that HR ignored, the company decided she was a liability. She was escorted out by security on Friday afternoon. The best part? Dave got the house in the settlement because he had put his entire inheritance into the down payment years ago. I still drive that Porsche on Fridays, but now the office is a lot quieter, and nobody is begging me to have a drink with them. This hits home. I've dealt with the cool boss pivot before as well. In my case, it was after my boss saw my Instagram. My vacation pics from Cancun caused him to start treating me like a crush instead of an employee. Once I finally called him out on it, he had the nerve to act like I was the one being rude. I ended up leaving that job soon after for a better paying one where my boss didn't tell me how good I smelled every time that I walked in. So she really said that her husband doesn't appreciate the finer things? The only finer thing she was looking at was the price tag on your car. If your boss starts acting like a gold digger in a business suit, it's time to clock out forever. Oh, please. She wasn't flirting. She was just conducting a very thorough audit of his assets. Oh yeah, she was auditing his assets, all right. But hey, what about you guys? Have you ever had a boss who treated the office like a dating app or just acted completely unhinged? Drop your strange boss stories in the comments, and for every thumbs up this video gets, one entitled boss doesn't get to harass their employees. Am I the jerk for telling my parents they deserve to be kicked out of my sister's wedding? I'm 37, female, and my brother Mike, who's 35, has always been a knob. He's been babied to the point of being completely useless by our mom and dad, and it's turned him into an entitled slob who expects the world to revolve around him. When he was younger, he showed promise playing rugby, and our parents became convinced he was going to be some kind of a superstar. The problem was that he never had the work ethic to back it up. Still, in their eyes, he became the golden child who could do no wrong. At school, he was a bully, which my parents dismissed as other kids making things up. At home, though, it was even worse, especially toward our younger sister, Kelly, who's 31. He constantly pulled pranks, which really just meant doing whatever he could to embarrass or humiliate her. One of the worst examples was when he threw a drink all over her in front of the whole family at a wedding when she was 15. He was already an adult by then. Mom and Dad brushed it off as siblings being siblings, but the rest of the family was horrified. I did try to stand up for my sister when I could, and sometimes it helped. But after I went to uni, there wasn't much I could do. Our parents just don't listen to anyone. It got so bad that when Kelly turned 18, she gave up her dream of going to St. Andrews and instead chose to go to the Imperial College London. That was a huge shock to all of us, as she had been talking about St. Andrews since she started high school at 11. When I asked her why, she said St. Andrews was too close to home and she'd be expected to visit more often. London meant that she could limit contact and only come home at Christmas. That really broke my heart. And that's exactly what she did. After she left, she only came home for Christmas and my wedding. Our parents complained constantly, saying she was abandoning the family. I kept quiet most of the time because I didn't want constant arguments. After graduating from uni, they expected her to move back home, but she didn't. She got a job working in southern England and stayed down there. For reference, we're from Scotland, so she really put distance between herself and home. 6 years ago, Kelly met a great guy, Jake, who's 30. The way she talked about him from day one was different. I've met him several times, and he's good-looking, funny, great job, and most importantly, he treats Kelly like she hung the moon. You can tell he genuinely cares about her. It's very cute. After meeting him, she came home even less. Then lockdown happened, and she didn't come back for about 3 years. The first Christmas she came back, Mike started his usual behavior, trying to be the center of attention. When that didn't work because everyone was more interested in meeting Jake, he decided to prank Kelly again. He filled a bowl with water and was about to pour it all over her. Jake saw what was happening and stepped in front of her, telling Mike not to even think about it. For context, Jake is 6'3" and is trained in martial arts since he was a kid, so he can be very intimidating when needed. Our parents tried to brush it off as harmless, but Jake wasn't having it. Mike started whining about it being a joke, and Jake told him that if he tried anything again, he'd deal with it himself. Kelly and Jake left shortly after, and from that point on, Mike and our parents had an issue with Jake. Kelly hasn't been back home since. That brings us to now. Kelly and Jake are getting married. Invitations went out in February for an August wedding. However, Mike wasn't invited. Mom and Dad are obviously incensed by this. They argued with Kelly and even threatened not to attend. Kelly basically said that was fine and that she'd have our granddad walk her down the aisle instead. Last Saturday, I went over to my parents' house with my kids. My mom immediately started complaining about Kelly and the wedding. I listened for a while, but eventually I'd had enough. I asked her what she honestly expected. They've enabled Mike his entire life. Because of that, he can't maintain relationships because he expects everything to be handed to him. He can't hold down a job because he thinks everything is beneath him. He still lives at home with no real prospects. He's a bully, and I wouldn't trust him around my kids. He made Kelly's life miserable growing up to the point that she had to move hundreds of miles away just to escape. My mom went quiet and then asked me to leave. A few hours later, my dad called and started shouting, saying I'd upset my mom and that I was siding with an ungrateful little girl instead of my parents who gave me everything. That turned into a huge argument where I told him he'd been a terrible father to Kelly and didn't deserve to walk her down the aisle. At this point, I've just had enough. But now, extended family members are saying I went too far because my mom is crying and barely speaking to anyone. My granddad thinks it was long overdue that someone said something, but my grandma is upset about the conflict. So, am I the jerk for telling my parents that they were bad parents and deserved to be kicked out of my sister's wedding? Not the jerk. Sounds like they kicked themselves out. You can't enable someone's behavior for years and then act shocked when people start setting boundaries. This didn't come out of nowhere. This feels like consequences finally catching up. The sad part is, your mother might be more upset about how this reflects on her and your brother than about what your sister actually went through. If she truly understood the damage, she'd be focused on making things right with Kelly, not defending Mike. What really stands out to me is that your sister had to change the entire direction of her life just to get away from that environment. That says everything. Your parents didn't just fail to correct his behavior, they protected it. You didn't go too far. If anything, this conversation should have happened years ago. Update 3 days later. There were a few things that came up repeatedly, so I'll address those first. The pranks only really escalated after I'd left home and gone to uni. When we were younger, he would say things to Kelly and I would push back, but it never went beyond that. Once I left, there wasn't much I could do. I did speak to our parents about it, but they're useless when it comes to holding him accountable. The second thing was about my kids. I didn't take them to my parents' house very often because they didn't enjoy going. They said it was boring and that they didn't like Mike. After reading some of the comments, I set them down and asked them properly. My daughter said she just finds it boring and thinks Mike is a bit of a weirdo. My son, however, said he doesn't like being around my dad because he keeps trying to push him into playing rugby. I'd heard my dad make those comments before, and I told him to drop it, but I didn't realize how much it was bothering my son. That was a bit of a wake-up call. My son has no interest in sports at all. He's much more into Pokemon, plays online, and goes to a weekly tournament at our local card shop. Rugby is an absolute no-go for him, and I'm not going to force him into something he clearly doesn't enjoy. The third thing people mentioned was security at the wedding. I spoke to Kelly and Jake about that, and Jake said 2 of his groomsmen are police officers and are fully aware of the situation, so that's already been taken care of. Lastly, there were a lot of comments about Mike being the golden child. Thinking about it more, he wasn't always treated that way. It really started when his rugby talent showed up. From that point on, he became special to Mom and Dad, and everything revolved around him. I think my parents liked the idea of having a gifted child and built their identity around that, which only made things worse. Anyway, today I went to see my parents because I wanted to be clear about where I stand. The moment I walked in, my dad immediately told me I needed to apologize to my mom. I told him that wasn't happening. We went back and forth for a bit until my mom asked why I was even there if I wasn't going to apologize. I told them the truth. I said I had spoken to Kelly and she doesn't want them at the wedding at all. They need to respect that and stay away. They weren't happy, but they said they wouldn't go where they weren't wanted. I then told them I needed space from them until after the wedding. I can't keep being around them and biting my tongue. I think some distance will be better for everyone. My mom then brought up seeing my kids. I was honest with them and told them that the kids don't like coming over. I explained exactly why my son doesn't want to be around my dad. He got upset and said that rugby would be good for him. I shut that down immediately and told him I'm not forcing my son into something he doesn't want to do. I also made it clear that if he keeps bringing it up, he won't be seeing my son at all. For now, they'll only see the kids at larger family events, and that's it. Then I asked them something they clearly hadn't thought about. What is their long-term plan for Mike? Are they going to keep this up until they're 90 with my mom still cooking all his meals? What happens when they're gone? Who's going to take care of him? Because it won't be me. Kelly lives down south, and I'm planning to move closer to my husband's hometown once our kids are grown, so it won't be her either. And if they get ill, who's going to look after them? Mike isn't capable of doing that. They just stared at me completely blank. I don't think they've ever thought about any of it. I told them they've set him up to fail, and now they're going to have to deal with the consequences of that. I also told them I know they're planning to leave everything to him in their will, but with how he's been raised, he'll burn through that money in no time. And then what? I could see the panic in my mom's face when I said that. Either she hadn't thought it through, or she assumed I'd step in and sort everything out. Now she knows I won't. After laying out what low contact is going to look like going forward, I left. Hopefully, it's given them something to think about. I'll check in occasionally, but that's all for now. I'm planning to visit Kelly soon, which I'm really looking forward to. As for the extended family, they've backed off after I told them that if they're so concerned about my mom, they're more than welcome to deal with Mike themselves. Unsurprisingly, none of them were interested. For now, I'm just going to get on with my life. Thanks again for the not the jerk verdict and for all the advice. It helped me see a few things that I'd really been brushing off. My favorite part about this is the look on your mom's face when she realized you're not going to be responsible for taking care of a fully grown man after she's gone. Deep down, she knows exactly what kind of situation they've created. He's not prepared to handle responsibility, and without real accountability, he'll likely burn through whatever they leave him far quicker than they expect. No amount of money or safety net can fix that if nothing else changes. You did the right thing, even if it was difficult. Sometimes people only react strongly when they're finally called out, and that doesn't mean you were wrong. It just means they weren't ready to hear it. The situation with your brother is exactly what happens when someone is protected from consequences for too long. If nothing changes, it's very likely he won't be able to manage things on his own later, no matter what they leave him. That's not on you to fix. Also, the way they've handled things between all three of you doesn't feel fair at all. You and your sister built your own lives, while he's been given everything without accountability. At some point, that imbalance catches up. You've set clear boundaries and backed your sister. That matters a lot. Now it's on your parents to decide what they want to do moving forward. Update 3 months later. So, Kelly got married last weekend, and I'm happy to say that everything went without a hitch. No drama, no surprises. Just a really lovely day from start to finish. She looked incredible, and you could tell how happy she was. After everything she's been through, she really deserved that kind of peaceful, joyful wedding. Our parents and Mike didn't try to attend at all, which I think was for the best. I do know that Mom tried to contact Kelly a few times before the wedding through other family members, but Kelly made it very clear she wasn't interested. At one point, she even told one of them that if they kept pushing, they'd be uninvited as well. That pretty much shut it all down. As for Mike, from what I've heard, nothing's really changed. He's still a drain on society, according to a cousin of ours. I haven't spoken to him at all, so I only know bits and pieces, but it sounds like he's still living the same way he always has. I've spoken to Mom and Dad once since my last update, and unfortunately, nothing has changed there either. I just don't have the energy to keep going in circles with them. At this point, I'm completely no contact. From what I've heard, Dad still thinks I'll come around, and Mom is playing the sympathy card with the rest of the family. If anything, that's just pushing me further away. They don't seem to realize that. My kids haven't missed them at all, which says a lot. It hasn't been difficult keeping that distance, and things have felt a lot calmer because of it. Right now, I'm just focusing on my life with my husband and kids. One really positive thing that's come out of all of this is that Kelly and I have been talking a lot more. We're closer now than we've been in years, and I'm really grateful for that. I know some people were expecting some kind of a big confrontation at the wedding, but I'm actually relieved there wasn't any. Everything went exactly as it should have. Thanks again for all the comments and advice on my previous posts. It really helped me see things more clearly and gave me the push that I needed to set proper boundaries. Update 3 months later. I think my mom might have started to wake up when it comes to Mike. It was my son's birthday a couple of weeks ago, and my mom reached out saying she had bought him some presents. I'll be honest, I was a little reluctant at first, because in the past, everything she bought him was rugby related. But she promised it wouldn't be this time, so I agreed to let her come over and give them to him. Turns out, she really put the effort in. A friend of hers had gone to Seoul and brought back Pokemon cards at my mom's request. My son absolutely loves Asian Pokemon cards and even has a separate binder just for them. She gave him 20 packs, along with a Pokemon backpack, a teddy bear, and a Funko Pop of his favorite character. She'd even gone into our local card shop to ask what he might like. Needless to say, my son was over the moon. And that meant a lot to me too. It showed she'd actually been paying attention to what he likes, instead of trying to push her own ideas onto him. It felt like a genuine effort. Because of that, I agreed to meet her for lunch a few days later. During that lunch, she told me that she and my dad had been arguing constantly because of Mike. She said she's finally put her foot down. She told Mike he needs to get a job and keep it, and that she's no longer giving him money. My dad, of course, defended him. He said Mike just needs more time to find himself, which is the same line he's always used. Apparently, this has led to a lot of arguments at home, and my mom has basically gone on strike. She's not cooking for either of them, not doing their washing, nothing. She's done this before when she's properly fed up, but this time it feels different. She actually admitted that I was right. She said that babying Mike hasn't helped him and that he needs to grow up. I won't lie, I was surprised, but also really happy to hear it. Since then, I've started speaking to her regularly again. She seems determined to stick to what she said and wants Mike to actually take responsibility for himself. That said, I'm still cautious. She's gone back on things before, so I'm not fully trusting it yet, but I do think this is progress. My dad, on the other hand, hasn't changed at all. Still exactly the same. Anyway, I just had a spare 10 minutes and thought I'd update you all. We'll see how things go over Christmas and whether my mom sticks to her stance. But fingers crossed, she's finally turned the corner. Update 4 months later. I said I'd update after Christmas, but life got complicated. In early January, I found out I was already 4 months pregnant, which definitely wasn't on my bingo card. Since then, I've been busy getting everything ready for our little boy's arrival. Kelly's doing really well. She's very happy with Jake and absolutely over the moon about becoming an aunt again. I saw her over New Year when she stopped by on her way to Edinburgh, and it was lovely to spend that time together. As for my mom, she ended up staying with her sister over Christmas and New Year because she needed a proper break from Mike and my dad. My dad went to his parents' house, and from everything I've heard, nothing has changed on his end. He's still fully enabling Mike, no surprises there. My mom, however, has genuinely turned the corner. I think the reality of nearly losing both her daughters and her grandchildren finally got through to her. She's admitted that the way they raised Mike hasn't helped him and that it hasn't been fair to the rest of us. She's now actively trying to get him to find a job and take responsibility for himself. The problem is that my dad is still undermining all of that. He's still giving Mike money and making life as easy as possible for him, so Mike hasn't changed at all. This has led to constant arguments between my parents. When my mom went back home after the holidays, she moved into the room Kelly and I used to share. She's still on strike, as she puts it, so isn't washing, cooking, cleaning, or really doing anything in the house. I don't know what will happen between her and my dad, but things can't carry on the way they are now. On my end, I've been spending quite a bit of time with my mom. She comes around 3 or 4 times a week and brings food. And I'm not going to lie, her cooking is amazing, so neither me nor my husband are complaining. More importantly, she's been making a real effort with my kids. She's spending proper time with them, getting to know what they actually enjoy. Watching my son try to teach her how to play Pokemon has been one of the funniest things I've seen in ages. Me and my daughter couldn't stop laughing. She's also been taking my daughter out to the cinema, which is her favorite thing to do. She also wrote Kelly a letter apologizing for everything, and they had a long phone call in January. Kelly has gone from completely no contact to low contact with her, which is honestly more than any of us expected. Both Kelly and I are still no contact with my dad and Mike. That's about where things stand. I don't think my dad is going to change if I'm being honest, but I'm really glad that my mom seems to finally have realized what needed to change and is actually putting in the effort. So the mom finally woke up, went on strike, and said, "Cook your own dinner." That's growth.
Oh yes, nothing motivates a grown man like suddenly losing free meals and laundry service.
Meanwhile, Dad's still out here saying, "He just needs time," like he's 19, not 35.
At that point, it's not time he needs, it's a reality check and a job application.
Am I the jerk for admitting to my son that I love his mother more than him and telling him he's acting self-centered? My son moved out right after graduating college last year. Since then, he's been very preoccupied with his own life. My wife and I couldn't be prouder of him, but we do wish he made a little more effort to keep in touch, especially since he only lives about 30 minutes away. Months would go by without hearing from him, and we were always the ones that had to reach out first. We never really complained about it to him. We figured he was just busy building his own life, which is what we raised him to do. I guess things came to a head on my wife's birthday. Her birthday was 2 days ago, and we didn't get a call, a message, or even a quick surprise visit. She was a little upset, but she chose not to confront him about it. She just didn't want to make a big deal out of it. I decided to call him, not out of anger, but more as a reminder. I said, "Hey buddy, you missed your mom's birthday." He immediately apologized and asked me to wish her a happy birthday on his behalf. I told him that I would, but also mentioned that it would be nice if he could come visit us soon because we miss him. Apparently, that set him off. He told me that he has his own life to live and that we have ours. I told him I understood that, but we're still his parents and we want to stay close with him. That's when things escalated. He bluntly said that he doesn't want a close relationship with us and that he's frustrated that we won't leave him alone. That caught me completely off guard. I asked him why he felt that way, and out of nowhere, he brought up something from when he was 10 years old. He said he overheard my wife and me talking one day and that we said we loved each other more than we loved him. I was honestly confused because I don't even remember saying anything like that. When I asked him for more context, he explained that we had been talking about our own parents' marriages. At some point, I apparently said something along the lines of, "Even though I love him a lot, I love his mother the most." My wife agreed with me at the time. According to him, that moment stuck with him and shaped how he saw our relationship ever since. I told him there was nothing wrong with what I said. In my mind, it was about the kind of bond a husband and wife share, especially since children grow up and eventually move on to build their own lives. He clearly didn't see it that way. At that point, I lost my patience and told him he was acting like a self-centered brat who thinks the world revolves around him. He told me to go to hell and hung up. When I told my wife about what happened, she said I was wrong for calling him that, even though I still believe what I said was true. Now I'm left wondering if I handled this completely wrong or if he's just overreacting to something that happened years ago. You're the jerk, and not just for what you said on the phone, but for how quickly you dismissed what he was trying to tell you. Kids don't usually carry something like that for years unless it meant something to them at the time. Whether you intended it that way or not, he clearly internalized that moment as, "I matter less." Also, calling him self-centered didn't help your case at all. If you actually want a relationship with your son, that's not how you open that door. At no point in your story did you ask how he felt growing up or try to understand why this stuck with him. You just told him that he was wrong. I'm going to go a bit against the grain here. Sometimes it really is just one moment that sticks with a kid in a way that adults don't expect. A 10-year-old doesn't always have the same context to understand what you meant, so they fill in the blanks themselves. From your perspective, you were talking about the nature of a marriage. From his perspective, he heard that he wasn't the most important person in his parents' lives. That's a big thing for a child to process. Where you went wrong wasn't the original comment, it was doubling down instead of trying to understand how that moment affected him. This isn't really about who you love more. It's about how your son felt growing up and whether he felt like he had a place in your emotional world. What stood out to me is that he didn't explode back then. He didn't question you or bring it up as a kid. He just held on to it quietly for years. That usually means there were other small moments that reinforced that feeling even if you didn't notice them. And now, as an adult, he's setting boundaries. You don't have to agree with them, but calling him names isn't going to bring him closer. If anything, it just confirms what he already believes. Update 5 days later. This morning, I had a deeply informative and somewhat emotional conversation with my son. I started by apologizing for what I called him during our last conversation. I told him I shouldn't have said that and that I wanted to hear him out properly this time. I let him speak first and encouraged him to get everything off his chest. He began by apologizing for forgetting my wife's birthday. He explained that over the past year, he's been dealing with issues in his own relationship, and that's part of why he's been distant from us. I asked him why he didn't come to us for support. He said he didn't want to burden us with his problems. That answer stuck with me more than anything else he said. I also asked him directly if he resented us in any way. That's when he opened up more deeply about how he's been feeling, not just recently, but for a long time. He reassured me that we weren't bad parents. He said we never neglected him, that we loved him, and that we were attentive in the ways we knew how to be. At the same time, he said something that's hard for me to fully process. He said that while it was okay that we prioritized each other as husband and wife, it still affected him. He acknowledged that he understands our perspective now as an adult, but that doesn't erase how it felt growing up. I told him I was glad he could see where we were coming from. I reiterated something I've always believed, that children eventually grow up, move out, and build their own lives, while a spouse is your lifelong partner. He didn't agree with that framing. He said that even if that's true, it doesn't justify expecting a close relationship now, especially if he didn't feel like a priority back then. In his words, if parenting was just a phase in our lives, then we should be grateful for whatever level of contact he chooses to give us now. He explained that his feelings weren't based on just one moment, but on a pattern of small things over time. He brought up specific examples I honestly hadn't thought much about before. He said that when we came home from work, we would always greet each other first, even if he was physically closer. He mentioned that he rarely got individual time with either of us, and while he used to assume it was because we were busy, looking back now, it made him feel like an afterthought. Hearing that was difficult. Then he shared how he wants to approach things differently in his own future. He said that when he has a family, he plans to prioritize both his children and his spouse equally, that he doesn't believe it has to be one over the other. I told him that in practice, I don't think that approach works the way he imagines it, that eventually children grow up and leave, and the relationship with your spouse is what remains. He pushed back on that too. He said that even if that's the case, he wouldn't expect his future children to prioritize him once they build their own families. In his view, becoming a parent is a choice the child has no say in, so it comes with the responsibility to treat them as equally important while they're growing up. He made it clear that he's not asking to be the center of our world now. I asked him what he wants going forward. He said he needs time to process everything and to think about what kind of relationship he wants with us moving forward. I told my wife about the conversation, and she's been very upset since. She's been fighting the urge to call him, but I've told her we should give him the space he asked for. So for now, that's where things stand. You're still missing the core issue here. You keep explaining your philosophy instead of actually hearing what your son is telling you. This isn't about whether you're right that spouses stay and children leave. This is about the fact that your child felt like he came second his entire life, and when he finally told you that, your instinct was to justify it instead of validate it. Also, the fact that he didn't feel comfortable coming to you with his own relationship problems says a lot. That's not something that happens randomly. That's something that builds over years. The irony here is kind of hard to ignore. You prioritized your spouse because children grow up and leave, and now that your son has grown up and left, suddenly that outcome doesn't feel so great. Your son isn't even asking you to change the past. He's explaining how it felt from his side. And instead of saying, "I'm sorry you felt that way, I wish we had done better," you're still trying to explain why your approach made sense. Sometimes being technically right doesn't fix the damage. So OP really said, kids leave and spouses stay, and now the kid left emotionally.
Life said, noted, and handed him the exact outcome that he planned for.
Turns out, children remember the little things, like being second place.
And now he's learned the hard way. Love isn't a ranking system. It's a relationship that you actually invest in.
Dear Disney, I would like to report someone for copyright infringement. The solar eclipse is happening in my city. I bought a 20-pack of glasses for $25. I kept 4 pairs for my family, and I'm selling the other 16. I posted them on Facebook for $5 per pair. I know I wouldn't get $5, but it gives room for people to haggle. The goal is to make my money back. One person got really angry, calling me a scammer, and says that I'm trying to take advantage of others because the big box stores are selling them for $2. When I told her that nobody is forced to buy them from me, and once you include taxes, my price is just $1 and some change. I don't know how I'm taking advantage of someone over $1, and that's if I sell a pair for $5. She still insults me and then makes her own post about me on the community watch, calling me all sorts of names. I saw that this person sells on Etsy. She sells Disney and Marvel cups and ornaments. She uses a label machine to make them. She said so herself on an older Facebook post. She does a lot of copyright characters and logos from several big-name companies. I saw that Disney has an email where you can report copyright infringement, so I emailed them with a link to her Etsy store along with photos of the items she sells and giving them basic information like her name, what city she's in, and her phone number. She had it all public on Facebook. I don't know if Disney will actually do anything, but it still makes me happy. I plan to email the other companies as well, such as all the major sporting teams, Nintendo, etc. I wasn't breaking the law selling an item for $1 more compared to my competitors, but you were breaking the law by using characters and logos that you didn't have the right to. I'm so confused by your math. 20 pairs of glasses for $25 is $1.25 per pair. Are you saying taxes add on $2.75? More than double the original price? And how are you selling them $1 more than your competitor if they're charging $2 per pair? I, 36 male, think that my wife, who's 38, is cheating on me and using me as a cover. I'm gonna be straightforward. My wife and I have been married for 9 years now. No kids. We have a great marriage, good compatibility, love life, lots of shared interests, etc. So I never had any reasons to suspect my wife of cheating on me, until recently. In the summer of 2022, my wife started a new job. There, she met Mark, who's 32, male. My wife and I are very communicative, so I knew about Mark from the beginning. All I know about him until the summer of 2023 is that he's a friendly coworker of hers who's helped her navigate her way around in the beginning, and they're very good friends in the context of work. I know that Mark is married. I'm not aware of them hanging out outside of work during this period of time. In summer of 2023, I get introduced to Mark all of a sudden. My wife and I were getting ready to go to the beach in the morning, and she asks me if I mind Mark joining us. As I said, I've always trusted her, so I never thought anything weird about it, and I said okay. I liked hanging out with Mark that day. He was cool, even treated us to food and drinks. The next time we went out together, he brought his wife with him. Before I knew it, this form of spending time became the norm. Mark, me, and my wife, or Mark, me, and both wives. For a bit, I enjoyed having a squad like this, probably because I never had that experience when I was younger, and Mark and I actually became quite good friends. We'd even hang out one-on-one. Well, this lasted until January of this year. For Christmas and New Year's, we went on a skiing trip together, all 4 of us. This is when I started to feel suffocated. Basically, each time I'd try to do something alone with my wife, Mark would join us. Each time I'd try to tell my wife that this was bothering me, and she'd say to chill because the more the merrier. I ended up spending more time with Mark's wife that vacation, because both of us felt like third wheels. When we returned home, this is how things started to be. I'd tell my wife, hey, let's go have some dinner somewhere nice. Then she'd tell me Mark's coming too. She'd basically refuse to spend any private time with me outside the house. The situation also made me start finding Mark irritating. A few weeks ago, I happened to run into someone from their workplace. I couldn't help myself but ask about how they were behaving at work. She told me that they're the unofficial office couple, that my wife likes to jokingly go by Mrs. Mark's last name. She told me she never saw anything physical, but emotionally, they're basically acting like a married couple. I told my wife and Mark about this, and they said it's just work gossip. Now about the cover part. My wife won't go out with Mark alone, so she drags me along each time with the pretext of a group meeting. I feel like she does this only so that people don't see her alone in public with him and start suspecting an affair. Mark's wife also has the same suspicions and experience. But Mark, just like my wife, says it's an overreaction and gossip. We're both just misunderstanding them. To top things off, this week my younger brother jokingly asked me if Mark is his new brother-in-law because we seem like a triple. My question is, how do I go about to put an end to this? I honestly don't know if I should just put an end to my marriage. Will my wife even ever be honest about this? I love her, but this is becoming unbearable. I think you need to be more blunt. I don't trust you anymore. I think you're lying to me about your feelings for this guy, and I can't be with someone who ignores my feelings this way. You're having an emotional affair. I can see it with my own eyes, and I don't want Mark around anymore in any circumstances, or I'll have to leave for my own sanity and well-being. Quit going on your wife's dates with her boyfriend, for starters. Set boundaries. If she invites you along with Mark, say no. Tell her you're not comfortable being the third wheel on a date between the two of them. Tell her you don't control her choices, but your choice is not going to stay with a woman who goes on dates with other men. Have Mark's wife do the same thing, telling Mark that she won't go along and that if he goes on solo dates with your wife, then the two of them are done. I expect a strong reaction, but don't argue or debate. This is a choice you are making. Married people should not have dateable friends ever. This is becoming so common on this platform. You need to realize straight men and women are drawn to each other. It is the way it is, a biological need. Putting them as friends when she's married is like cheating in your face. You're correct in your title. You tell her it is an emotional affair. If she doesn't cut ties, you're out. Period. You allowed the fox in your henhouse. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
Remember when your dedication to your spouse was supposed to be your top priority?
My ex's friend convinced her that I was cheating and destroyed our relationship, so I exposed them all to each other. I was with my ex, Anne, for 4 years before our nasty breakup. We were happy for the first 3 years because we were genuine best friends. People openly admitted that the way we could laugh, joke, and play fight filled any house with happiness. However, within the last year or so, there was a serious breakdown in affection and communication. She became very cold, mean, and distant. She stopped letting me go out and was very accusational. She stopped showing me basic decency, and our friendship began circling the drain during that time. I didn't know till very recently, but her friend Lauren convinced her that I'd cheat on her while she's away. Anne's friends are Lauren, Jillian, Kira, and Kaysen. Lauren and Kaysen are together. This is important. You see, Anne travels for work. She's usually gone for up to 3 weeks at a time. She came back from her most recent work trip last Friday and over breakfast the next day bluntly confronted me and asked me if I'd hooked up with another woman while she was gone. I told her no, which is the truth, but it wasn't good enough and she demanded to see my phone. I said no because how out of left field this was, and never once had either of us ever needed to go through the other person's phone. She took my phone and went through it anyways. She investigated my texts, calls, Snap, Insta, etc. She was cross-referencing my followers and friends with people who liked my Instagram posts. It was absolutely mental to see. She couldn't find what she was looking for and accused me of deleting texts and contacts. She threw my phone back at me and stared off angrily. Her breathing was very heavy and flared, and I could tell that she was holding rage towards me. At that moment, I felt very tense and stressed in her presence. I don't know why, but I asked, "Did you do something on your work trip that I should know about?" I could see that she nearly exploded again, but her composure shrunk and her breathing calmed. The silence that followed was probably a better answer if I'm being honest. "You cheated first." She couldn't even look at me while she said that. I instantly knew what that statement meant, and it was like a stab to the heart. "When did I ever cheat on you?" I won't quote the entire conversation verbatim, but long story short, Lauren filled Anne's head with a bunch of BS about how her long work trips would push me to cheat because it would push any man to cheat. Well, it turns out Anne cheated on her work trip under the advice of Lauren. Her anger, guilt, and fear built up and made her explode. I finally realized why it felt so futile trying to fix the relationship for the last year. So badly I just wanted to go back to being who we used to be, but now it was clear. Any trust she had in me was completely constantly undermined by someone else that she trusted. It didn't matter. The damage was done and actions can't be reversed. I don't know how to describe it, but I think my emotions just completely shut off in that moment. I detached completely, and whatever beauty I beheld disappeared before my eyes. I told her to leave and never come back. She packed up some of her clothes, screamed at me, and called her mom to come get her. I've spent the last few days just grieving and figuring things out. I'm the kind of person that copes by avoiding home, so last night I went out by myself, hoping to play some pool and get drunk at the bar. I went to a semi-popular lounge at a mall and had some cheap, stiff drinks for their happy hour. I had a good buzz by the time my happy hour ended, but I wasn't feeling the best. My buddies didn't show up, so I was sitting there sad. Then a group of people entered in front of where I was facing. I immediately recognized them to be Anne, Jillian, Kira, and Lauren. I switched seats to face away and hung my head. I don't think they saw me because they picked a booth that was behind my left. I won't lie, it hurt seeing Anne dressed up again. She stopped wearing makeup and doing her hair around the same time Lauren got in her ear. They all sat down, and I hear Jillian asking the girls to cover her tab. Anne mentioned that she never has her own money. Anyways, I make like a tree and get out of there before they notice me. So here's the thing. When Anne and I were together, it was always something new when she came home from hanging out with her friends. She was either stressed or mad about something, or she had to keep a new secret for somebody from the rest of the group. And she told me about it every single time. One instance stands out as the last nail in the coffin for whatever good faith I had for her friends. You see, Lauren loves to drink, but she's a lightweight. In 2022, she threw a party and invited the girls over, plus Kaysen. About 1 or 2 a.m., the drinks are running low and Lauren wants to keep going. Her and Kaysen send Anne and Jillian on a beer run, but since they're already drunk, they walk. Took them about 40 minutes there and back, and by the time they got back, they found Lauren passed out in the living room. Anne went out for a smoke while Jillian went to go use the washroom. Couple of seconds later, Jillian runs outside crying, being chased by Kira and Kaysen. They're begging Jillian not to tell Lauren what she just saw. Yup, she caught them cheating upstairs. And from what Anne tells me, Jillian was really going to tell Lauren about it until the cheating pair bribed her with a Louis bag and Lord Huron concert tickets. Jillian must have felt so guilty with her hand-me-down Louis that she took Lauren to the concert to make herself feel better about it. So, whatever. So I went home and checked my phone. Yep, I'm still in the old group chat. Do you ever wonder how Jillian is always broke, yet she got that expensive Louis bag? Yeah, well, Anne told me that Jillian caught Kaysen hooking up with Kira upstairs in your house back in July. So Kira gave Jillian her old Louis handbag not to tell, and Kaysen bought the floor tickets to the Lord Huron concert that she took you to. And I pressed send. Lauren and Kira saw it immediately and one began typing. I left the group, blocked, and went do not disturb. Not my problem. My partner, 32 male, told me that he needed to see the girl who got away to get closure. I've been seeing this guy for about 9 months. I've really enjoyed dating him and everything was going pretty smooth until now. He's a medical student, so very busy schedule, but we've been making it work. His breaks from class are when he gets to spend most of our time together, and he's currently on spring break. Well, he comes to town to see me and tells me that we need to talk and that there was a girl he briefly dated 8 years ago. They didn't end on the best of terms, which he said always bothered him for some reason. Then he tells me that he was out of town and met her to briefly talk and she tried to come on to him, but he denied it due to our relationship. I could have probably moved past this and talked through it, but then he tells me instead of seeing me that night, he needs to go see her to get drinks. He says he knows they're not meant to be together, but he hasn't been able to fully shut that door and that seeing her will finally help close that chapter for him. I blew up when he told me. I ended things immediately and stormed off. I did come back after an hour so we could further discuss, which we did for quite a few hours. I told him how uncomfortable I am with him pretty much going on a date with a girl and that it's unfair for him to expect me to wait around to be a second option. He says I'm not a second option, nor does he expect me to wait. This is a him thing, and he needs to do it for him. Now, I could maybe try to move past all of this until he admitted to me yesterday that she stayed over. He is insistent there was nothing physical between them, but it's crappy either way. I do want to briefly add that I was in a 9-year relationship before this that ended in my partner cheating on me and leaving me for the other girl, which he does know because we have discussed our last relationships extensively. So this is just opening those wounds again. I'm stuck in a pickle here. I know I don't deserve to be treated this way. I honestly feel really stupid even considering trying to work things out, but I guess my mind and heart just aren't aligning right this second. And cutting ties at 9 months wouldn't be that big of a deal, but good old feelings get in the way. Update. I did end things the other day. I just texted him to reiterate that we are done and I wished him luck. I know I deserve better than someone who was unsure of me. Second update. He let her stay the night because they were both so drunk. That's a no from me. He spent the night with her. Someone he needs to close the door on? Nope. You've been down this road before. Why would you even consider it again? Your self-esteem and pride are worth much more than this. Am I the jerk for calling my brother a hypocrite for refusing to come to my wedding because it's child-free? I, 27 female, am due to get married to my partner, 28 male, this summer. The situation is that my brother, Josh, who's 32, is refusing to come to the wedding, and I think he's being unreasonable and childish. Our wedding is going to be child-free, no kids under the age of 13. The youngest guests will be around 12 to 13 at the time of the wedding. My partner and I don't hate kids, and we had multiple reasons for having our wedding this way. Me personally, I think that weddings are mostly boring, unenjoyable experiences from the point of view of kids, so it's hardly surprising that they will act up. Josh has 2 kids aged 5, twins, and he has made many comments that we are selfish for having a child-free wedding and that if we aren't inviting his kids, he's not going. I can understand his perspective, but I think he's not making any effort to understand ours. When Josh got married 7 years ago, he and his wife also had a child-free wedding. Last weekend, we attended a family party. It was someone's birthday, and some family members brought up the topic of my upcoming wedding. Josh scoffed the whole time and made a comment that he wouldn't know about it because he's excluded. His comments caused short, awkward silences, but no one responded to them. Later, when I was talking to Josh alone, I told him he's still invited to the wedding, and he and his wife can go or not. Those are his options, and him making snide comments aren't going to change the plans. He said that I'm alienating his kids, and that they will be very sad about this when they're older, and that they would love to be flower girls. I called him a hypocrite and told him to grow up, and that was the end of the conversation. Our parents are now getting involved, and my dad told me that he and my stepmom will not be at the wedding if Josh isn't. I'm not close with him for unrelated reasons, and our relationship is rocky at best, so I just told him that's up to him. My mom is asking me to just make an exception for Josh's kids. She said that I'm acting like a narcissist and that we all have to make compromises sometimes. Am I the jerk? Multiple people have been asking, so I'll just add it here. Josh and I are 2 out of 7 kids. At the time of Josh's wedding, 3 of our siblings had kids and babies, and so did some of our step-siblings. Not the jerk. Josh is indeed hypocritical. What does he even say about his change in perspective since he got married and had a child-free wedding himself, and is being strangely petulant and dramatic now? Your mom is also out of line, and the remarks about narcissism are ridiculous. Am I the jerk for calling the police on my niece and not telling my sister beforehand? I, 24 female, have a sister who's 35, and she has a 16-year-old daughter. Her daughter has started rebelling and being a teenager, and recently she's gotten sticky fingers. She's been banned from the mall in our neighborhood, she was suspended from school for taking a girl's phone, and she's even tried to pawn off her mother's wedding ring. I don't like my niece at my house for this reason. I've worked too hard for my things for them to be stolen. 2 weeks ago, I noticed the patio door was unlocked, and I make sure to lock all of my doors before I leave. My fiance suggested we get cameras, so I put cameras in the house. Last week, on Wednesday, my fiance and I went to go look at the wedding venues, and we were gone all day. But when we got back, I only had to unlock the bottom lock to get in the house. So we checked the cameras, and sure enough, my niece and her friends somehow picked the lock to the window, and she was in our house for hours with 2 guys, and they took some money from my purse. They took 2 of my fiance's Rolex watches, and they also took my grandmother's wedding ring that she left for me when she passed away last year from cancer. They were eating snacks and watching TV, shoes on our table and couch, just like they lived here and it was normal. I called my sister and I told her what happened and told her that my niece had 2 days to give me everything back or I'd call the police, and she said she would handle it. Thursday comes around and nothing. Friday comes around, nothing. So I called the police. I showed them the video, I filed a report. I got a call later from my sister, crying and screaming that I should have told her beforehand. I told her I gave her 2 days to come up with the stolen items, and I heard nothing back, and I told her I was going to call the police. She's lucky I gave her grace for 2 days. My mom called me and said, "You don't have kids, so you don't understand." I told her it doesn't matter if I have kids or not. She committed a crime and brought 2 random people into my house. My safety was in danger. I don't get the whole, "you should have warned me." Warned her for what? So she could hide her? I don't think I did anything wrong. My sister and her husband said they won't be coming to our wedding, and I told them their invitation was revoked when their daughter stole my things. I've been getting threats from her husband. I want to block them, but my fiance says keep all the evidence in case something else happens. Edit. We do have a security system now. We've changed the locks. We're getting a safe for his watches and the more valuable stuff. We were planning on moving by the end of the year, and none of my family will know where we moved to. I don't feel safe here knowing that 2 random guys know where I live. My fiance also says that we're getting a guard dog. We were already talking about getting a dog. No, this isn't just for guarding. We wanted one before, but we were waiting until we moved. Also, by beforehand, my sister meant like the day I called the police. Also, I've not gotten my things back as of yet. Hopefully. I'm calling around local pawn shops, checking Facebook, Craigslist, all of it. For all the people calling me names over calling the police, you're also not giving me any other solutions. I did not want to call the police, which is why I gave her 2 days. I don't think any of you know how unnerving it is to have your home broken into. You don't know how unsafe it feels to walk in your home scanning if anything is gone, hearing a creak and wondering if they came back. These 2 random guys she brought know where I live. I should feel safe here, but I feel anything but that. If this had been someone else's home, she could have been seriously hurt. Hopefully this was a wake-up call. If she needed money, she could have asked me, not broke into my home with 2 guys who are still on the streets and could come back at any moment and do Lord knows what. Not the jerk. Your niece has some serious issues and she needs to understand actions have consequences. Question though, how did she get into your house? OP. The second time, she snuck in through the kitchen window. Definitely not the jerk. You were incredibly generous to give them 2 days grace. Have you had any of the items since you called the police? Your sister and husband had absolutely no right to be rude or threatening. Maybe they can use that energy to deal with your niece. Oh, for crying out loud. You don't have kids, so you don't understand. What's not to understand? She broke into your house with 2 accomplices and they stole numerous valuable items. Now you feel violated and unsafe in your own home. Not the jerk, but your sister and your mother are big time. Do what you need to do to reclaim your property and your peace of mind. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend I'm bothered by the way she and her family treat their house staff? I, 25 male, am dating this girl who's 24 for about 5 months now. I know her family was well off from the stories that she told me about her upbringing, but I didn't get a chance to meet her parents until this week when we all went to their beach house to spend a few days and to celebrate her father's 60th birthday. The house wasn't just huge, but it was also employed by a staff of about 8 people. I was never used to being served like that, and I witnessed some behaviors from my girlfriend and some of her family towards the workers that made me feel uncomfortable. Some examples. A. After our first night, I heard her mother tell one of their housekeepers to clean the bedroom my girlfriend and I were staying in. I told her mother everything was in order and that I already made our bed before leaving. Her mother then told me, in the presence of the housekeeper, that I shouldn't bother because that's her job. B. The other morning, my girlfriend and I woke up after everyone else had their breakfast. I went into the kitchen to grab some coffee and I saw the cooks were already starting to prep for lunch. So I told them I didn't want to bother them and made the coffee myself. My girlfriend came into the kitchen moments later and saw me making coffee. Later that day, she complained to her mother, without even asking me how things came about, that the cooks left me to make my own coffee. I had to explain everything. C. On her father's birthday, they had a fancy dinner with some other guests that came just that day, and some of the staff was made to stand in the room with their backs to the wall as we sat at the table and ate. It was like some Downtown Abbey stuff. I kept my mouth shut for the entire trip, but as soon as we came back, I couldn't hold it in any longer, and I told my girlfriend it made me really uncomfortable to see how she behaved towards the staff, and also gave some examples of instances where I felt her parents were rude to them. My girlfriend didn't take this well. She said that I'm the jerk here for judging their lifestyle. In her mind, we had a perfect week together, and I was withholding my judgment until I could unleash it all on her. I don't think I'm the jerk for speaking my mind. I just want you to consider a different perspective for a second. The staff might be 100% okay with the behavior you saw, if they're paid enough and feel confident that it's better than any other job options. An outsider seeing my job would probably think some parts of it are ridiculous, but those parts are worth it to me as the person actually doing the job. For example, when your girlfriend's mother said, "Don't make your bed, that's the staff's job," a staff member hearing that might think, "She's right, please don't do my job for me, because then she has no reason to pay me for that job." I'm not saying you're in the wrong feeling uncomfortable with the behavior that you saw. I'm just cautioning you that you might be trying to stick up for people who are actually okay with the work environment that you saw. I have never in my life been to a house where there are staff standing around the table while everyone else eats. I would feel uncomfortable too. But when I'm staying in a hotel, I find it normal that waiters are serving the food and then standing around to make sure everything is in order, and that cleaning staff are cleaning my room every day. It seems that this family is paying to have their household run as if it were a hotel. This doesn't seem to be a bad thing. In fact, the OP might have misstepped by going to the kitchen and making their own coffee. It's possible that the staff saw this as an intrusion. You're the jerk. It's a paid housekeeper's job to make the bed. You put the kitchen staff in a bad spot. They were not supposed to let you make coffee, but they couldn't contradict you as the boyfriend of one of the family. The staff, like any other waiter at a restaurant, just stands around and stands by waiting for the moment to bring the foods in or the plates away. Your girlfriend should have told you and prepared you, but perhaps she didn't know that she needed to. That's her fault. Maybe she's just naive, I don't know. The fact is, that's the way things are run at her place. Can you accept it and not see it as exploitation? The staff is working and is compensated, or does this make you uncomfortable? You're the jerk. I don't see anything disrespectful here except for you. Going into someone's workplace, the kitchen, and demanding to be allowed to make your own coffee? Would you do that in a restaurant or a cafeteria? Do you know how annoying it is to be getting on with your day and have someone come in going, "Don't mind me, just getting coffee. By the way, where is the coffee? Where do you keep the cups? Sorry, where are the spoons? Do you have sugar by any chance?" The housekeeper is perfectly capable of noticing that you have made your bed and would probably have just had a quick checkup on towels and such. No need to interfere with her job. Not the jerk. Given your other comment that her behavior did a 180 while there, it makes me think that she's definitely not seeing them as people. Having staff stand there while you eat is very weird to me, and so is insisting staff go into your room or stop what they're doing to make you coffee. Her assumptions about it kind of cemented the not the jerk for me, honestly. She did not bother asking you and assumed the staff ignored you instead of telling them not to worry about it, which, if you had not been there to clear it up, could have cost them their jobs. Not the jerk. I understand she was raised to see nothing wrong with this behavior, but in a way, she showed you her true colors during this trip, and maybe your lifestyles have such fundamental differences in terms of value that, in your place, I'd be honestly reconsidering this relationship. But she did nothing wrong. What true colors did she show? She assumed the servants had been unhelpful without checking with OP or assuming he could be unaccustomed to this type of service in a family home. Without having the full picture, she could be jeopardizing these people's jobs or leading them to be reprimanded. And that's not a wrong assumption at face value. If I paid for domestic help and I walked in to see my guests doing what I pay someone to do, yes, it seems like the hired help was not doing their job. Clearly, it wasn't an issue after OP explained that he would make it himself, seeing as the staff were not reprimanded. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know.
Please tell me how the people on Reddit despise landlords, but at the same time have no problem with people having their own house servants and treating them like this.
Am I the jerk for staying at my son's wedding after he referred to his grandmother as the most important woman in his life? My son got married a month ago, and ever since then, tensions have been high with my wife and her parents. My wife and I married after the passing of my first wife. Our son was 6 years old whenever she passed. But our relationship had been over for a couple of years before she passed. We had stayed legally married for a while and tried to keep up pretenses for the sake of our son. But we both met people we wanted to be with, and then my first wife passed. I continued to see my wife, the woman I had met and wanted to be with, but I did not introduce her to my son for another year, and I saw her far less for several months while I focused on my son and helping him through the loss of his mom. My son was 7 when he met my wife, and I admit my wife and I married quickly. He was a few weeks shy of 8 years old, and he struggled with my wife being part of our lives. He was still in therapy, but we also did some group therapy together with a different therapist. He was respectful to her, but emotionally distant. He was not affectionate and did not love her. Over time, she did take on more of a parental responsibility, but we didn't jump straight into that. I didn't marry her to pawn my son off on someone else like some men do. I was always engaged in my son's life, and I always parented. He always turned to his grandmother, his mom's mom. He would call her regularly and would turn to her if I wasn't around and he was upset about something. He would see her as often as he could, and eventually, per the advice of the therapist, and after talking to my wife about how she was struggling doing all the parental things, but him being emotionally distant with her, I decided she should try to fill more of a friend or an aunt kind of role, and not that of a parent. She wasn't okay with it at first, but then admitted it would wear on her if he never returned her love or see her as a mom to him, and he was clear in therapy that he didn't want her as a second mom. He wanted nobody as that. Fast forward to the wedding, and during the toasts, my son thanked me and my wife and his grandmother, and mentioned his mom and how she was always his number one, but how after she passed, his grandmother was the most important woman in his life until he met his wife, and how they both loved her. My wife became very upset upon hearing this. She told me she wanted to leave once the speeches were done. I told her I didn't want to leave my son's wedding. She asked how I could stay when he showed how much he doesn't really value her or love her. She left, and I stayed, and she ended up at her parents' house. When I got home, she told me she felt abandoned, and her parents told me I was a bad husband and I should have put my son in his place and told him only one living woman deserved to be declared the most important woman in his life, besides his wife, and that was my wife. They feel I should have left with her because the ceremony was over and it was just the reception. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Sounds like you did things right with your son in his grief. Until the end, this was a beautiful story and you should be proud. I'm sure you know that your son turning to his grandma was normal. I think on some level, you know your wife's reaction and her parents was not. I do sympathize with your wife that her dreams of being his mom didn't work out, but that was naive of her. I can understand her being hurt, but her behavior isn't okay. She took on the role of an aunt and a friend, which is appropriate, and she was treated as such at his wedding. I also applaud you for raising a son who spoke from the heart. Not the jerk. Your wife was thanked in his speech. He recognized her. She's had a couple of decades to understand and accept your son being closer to his grandmother. It's not how she hoped her step-parent relationship would work out, and I understand her disappointment, but there was no need to be dramatic about it and be especially hurt and make a statement by leaving, even a quiet one. Being a step-parent is ground zero, the absolute most thankless job there can possibly be on this or any other planet. That being said, the best way to deal with it is to grow a very thick skin and just be gracious. I feel for your wife, but I would have stayed at the reception and dealt with my feelings privately. I would not have expected or demanded that my husband leave early. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she shouldn't overvalue herself and prepare for the worst? I, 21 female, have an older sister, Eve, who's 29, who had her first kid, Lori, who's 1. And while this should be a time of joy and excitement, there's actually a lot of tension and brewing resentment between her, our mom, and her husband, Jack, who's 29. Despite it being unplanned, Eve's pregnancy was wanted, and Jack was an involved partner. He went to most of Eve's appointments, took the birthing classes, and supported Eve's decision to just have our mom in the room while he went outside when she gave birth. The plan was for our mom to be by Eve's side in the room and to help stay for a week after Lori was born. Everyone was cool with this, but unfortunately our aunt got into some drama with her husband in another state, and our mom rushed over to be at her sister's side. Eve was already in her 3rd trimester, so Jack didn't like the idea of our mom going and voiced it. Our mom tore Jack a new one, and Eve even got on his case about it, so he apologized. However, Eve ended up going into labor, and Jack ultimately was the one in the room while our mom was away. When she called, our mom expressed being sad over not being there for the birth of her first grandchild, and she and Eve decided that no one else in the family would see Lori until she got back, without discussing it with Jack first. He was understandably not happy, as his mom lived about 45 minutes away and was looking forward to meeting Lori too, as she was the first grandchild on both sides. Eve pulled the "I just gave birth" card, and Jack reluctantly allowed it. On the day that our mom was supposed to come back, she missed her flight and couldn't get a new one until the following morning. Our mom could have just rented a car, but she didn't want to spend the money since the airline wouldn't refund the money. Jack brought up again allowing his mom to come visit, but Eve refused, citing that he already agreed. Unfortunately, Jack's mom was in an accident and she passed before ever getting to meet Lori, since Eve wouldn't even allow a video chat. Jack was distraught. He moved to the guest bedroom, went to the funeral alone, and refuses to engage with Eve at all. Jack's side of the family keeps calling and messaging Eve to tell her what a selfish and awful person she is, and Jack refuses to defend her. Eventually, Eve got sick of it and packed up and left to our mom's house to teach Jack a lesson, but he hasn't texted or called. Our mom thinks that he just needs some space and that he'll call soon, but I just laughed at that. I didn't mean to, though. My mom and Eve asked me why I laughed, and I tried to brush it off and even leave, but they wouldn't let me and they kept pressing me for an answer. Eventually, I told her that while the accident wasn't her fault, she did keep Lori away from Jack's mom, meeting her for a week, and now she never will. There's no way Jack is ever going to love you enough to forgive that, and that you should prepare for the worst. Eve started to bawl her eyes out while mom went off on me, so I left. Am I the jerk? Edit. Just to clarify, because I keep seeing this when the accident first happened, Eve apologized 3 separate times. Jack has admitted to this, and Eve intended to go to the funeral with him, but he drove off without her. Jack does interact with Lori. It's Eve that he's icing out, and my niece is the only thing he's willing to talk to Eve about. Jack had been living in the guest room for 5 months before Eve left. She's offered to go to couples counseling, but Jack has refused. I'll probably get downvoted, but who cares? Not the jerk. Your mom showed time and time again that her first granddaughter isn't that important to her. The fact that Jack's mom would never meet his niece is something that Jack would never get over, and he's right. His mom was denied access because the other grandmother would rather cater to her adult sister than meeting her granddaughter.
That woman passed with the wish to see her first granddaughter. Jack and the rest of the family are never going to forgive your sister for this. Hopefully, they won't take it out on the baby. Let this be a lesson. There are so many posts on this thread with pregnant women who are adamant that they get to dictate everything about a pregnancy because they're the one carrying the baby. It's my medical event. It's my body. It's my delivery and birth journey. Me, 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 me. It's all about me. The pregnant woman, and anything I say goes, even though I didn't make this baby on my own, and I will darn well insist that the other, the male, parent provides 50% of the care, emotional, financial, etc. The women of Reddit want it both ways, to be in complete control of everything about their pregnancy until they run into an inconvenience, and then it's complaining how their partners don't show up. It's a joke. They completely sideline the other parent as if they don't matter, but let the other parent do anything out of step, they get flamed. Y'all better wake up and get off social media and start using some common sense. You are not special because you became pregnant. This has been going on since forever. Get over yourself and work as a team. Stop feeding into this BS pregnancy social media trend. How selfish do you have to be to insist that no one can meet a baby until the mother's parent has done so first? This is so insane. And had Jack actually let his mom meet the baby, so many of the comments would be lambasting him for not supporting his wife who just gave birth. OP, you're not the jerk. You gave your sister a reality check because more than likely she's going to be co-parenting with Jack as a single woman. This is something that he may rightfully never get over. What a complete and utter mess, born out of unwarranted entitlement that pregnant women, new moms, and stay-at-home moms can do no wrong and always know best. Poor Jack and Lori. Am I the jerk for telling my wife that she needs to pay the $2,000 to fix her do-it-yourself project? My wife and I have a shared account that we put money in for shared bills. The rest of the money will stay in our own bank account. My wife has a habit of doing do-it-yourself projects that she has no idea what she's doing. Sometimes it's small, other times it's a huge mess. I have had conversations so many times that her big do-it-yourself projects, we need to agree if she can do it. This is due to her getting way over her head, and then I need to fix it or we have to pay someone. I'm sick of coming home and needing to fix a whole mess. She decided that she wanted to repaint the kitchen cabinets. Well, she didn't do a test on a small piece and started sanding. Those cabinets are not real wood, and she scratched them to heck and back again. The paint isn't sticking, and they are awful. She ruined almost all of the top kitchen cabinets. This is what I came home to. I told her she needs to replace them all, that she ruined perfectly good cabinets, and I'm not paying for it. This isn't a shared expense, and we've had conversation after conversation about her do-it-yourself projects. Also, if she just talked to me, I would have told her those are not real wood and had an odd panel covering on it. It's going to cost her around $2,000 to buy new cabinets and for people to install them. This started an argument where she said new cabinets are a shared expense and that I'm a jerk for not helping her. I came here for more opinions. Not the jerk, but where on earth do you live that new cabinets with installation is only $2,000? Did you mean $20,000? Because that's what it would cost here. If they're really only a couple of grand for brand new installed, maybe install them for her, but have her pay for them. OP. Luckily our kitchen is small and I have a friend that's willing to do it for some pizza and the drive out. $2,000 was basically the cost of the cabinets, and luckily she didn't touch the island or the lower ones. If we were actually hiring someone, it would be around $10,000 and probably take a month since they are weirdly slow. Not the jerk. She should ask before starting anything that belongs to you both whether she is capable of pulling the project off or not. My husband would blow a gasket if he came home and I'd repainted the cabinets, even if I had done a perfect job. That said, it is possible to paint over laminate. You don't need new cabinets, you just need to learn the proper procedure for this type of surface that you're working with. OP. It's scratched up very badly. It will need to be filled to even have a chance, and I don't trust her to actually do a good job. I don't want crappy looking cabinets. Our old ones were nice. Enjoy your open shelving concept until your wife caves. This is literally her mess. She needs to sort it out. If it was not a joint project, agreed on and budgeted on beforehand, this is all on her. Not the jerk. Karen demands I charge my son rent to live in a house that he partially owns. My oldest son, who's 24, is not my wife's biological kid. He was my son with my late wife. My late wife and I bought a 3-bedroom house when we got married. When I remarried, my current wife moved into this house with me, but I never put her name on the deed. The house was only in my name. My wife and I ended up having several kids and needing to move into a bigger house. When we bought our new home, she wanted me to sell the old one. I said no, that this home was something my late wife and I purchased with the hope of one day passing on to our son. I would make it a rental property instead. That was one of the biggest fights we had ever had. She insisted we make a compromise, but I refused to do so. When my son graduated from college, I put his name on the deed to the house with mine, which was another fight, but I felt he was the appropriate inheritor to his mother's share. I didn't share any of the rental income with him though, as I was still paying all of the taxes and insurance. At this point, the mortgage is paid off. I net over $2,000 a month from this house, which goes into the household budget. My son just got engaged and he wants to move into the house after he marries his fiancée. He suggested he pay half of the rent and eventually buy out my share of the house. I told my son I agreed to his plan of saving up to buy out my share, but instead of paying rent, he should just take over the taxes and insurance. We agreed to this. My wife is livid and says that I'm a massive jerk for dramatically decreasing our household income without consulting her. She likened my decision to financial mistreatment. I suggested we downsize to a smaller house now that our oldest 2 kids are leaving the nest, and we could rent out the larger one and be in the same situation as before, owning 2 homes and getting rental income on one. She called me a selfish jerk and won't even speak to me now. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Why even get married if you refuse to take anything that your wife says seriously? Maybe try treating her like an actual human and take what she has to say into consideration. There's no telling how many years this woman has been allowing you to be her husband, sharing her life with you, building a family with you, and even at this point, after all these years, you still flat out disregard what she has to say because you side with your daddy's boy. If she had known you would go on to pick your nepotism baby over her, I doubt she would have wasted her life with you. I hope she leaves you and is They always say that. I hope she leaves you and is able to get her fair share, which involves you selling that house and splitting the profits with her, not with your daddy's boy who wants to live in daddy's house for the rest of his life. Your wife deserves so much better. My brother married the mother of his daughter's bully and moved them into his house. My brother, 39 male, has a daughter, Piper, who's 15. When Piper was 4, her mom passed. My brother told Piper so much about her, and they had some special photos of her mom that were treasured. When Piper was 6, she started being teased by this girl called Nancy, who's now 15. It continued on for over a year and ultimately came to a head when Nancy tore up a photo of Piper's mom that Piper brought into school for some show-and-tell family edition her class was doing. From that day on, Piper did not like Nancy. Because of that incident, my brother and Nancy's mom met. They became friends, and a few months after the incident, where Nancy tore up the photo, they started dating, and they married a year later. Piper pulled away from my brother when she found out he was dating Nancy's mom, and even more when they moved in together and got married. Nancy was actually happy and tried to get close to Piper, but Piper wanted nothing to do with that. Nancy's mom mentioned how being sisters would mend the rift, and I thought that was kind of crazy given what went down. My brother only mentioned to me recently that he really thought Piper and Nancy would be sisters and would be close by now. But Piper doesn't want anything to do with Nancy still and doesn't trust her around anything important. I told my brother that's because he moved too fast to get that kind of relationship with them. I said he and his wife started dating and Nancy hadn't even apologized, and then Piper was still upset about who he was dating and Nancy being in her life more when they got married. I told him at no point did he try to make what happened better for Piper. He thought his marriage license would somehow erase the hurt Piper felt and the bullying Nancy put Piper through for more than a year. I said maybe if he had given it time, let Nancy apologize, and given the girls space where they weren't living together to interact outside of school, things could have been different. But you had one kid who was hurt and angry, and another who was eager to have a dad and a sibling after only having her mom. My brother said I expected him to let Piper dictate his life. I said no, not what I said. I said if he wanted Piper to be happy and embrace Nancy as a sibling, then he should have taken things more slowly to get that outcome. He told me it was none of my business and I was overstepping and I'm just his little sister. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your brother sucks and he needed to hear it. Being sisters will mend the rift
is the kind of BS rationalization people make when they don't want to face how disgusting it is that they're bringing Piper's bully into her home, into her family. My brother said I expected him to let Piper dictate his life? Ugh, yeah, God forbid a parent be expected to prioritize their kid's well-being or anything. What your brother needs to realize is that, sure, he can refuse to care about his teenage daughter, but Piper is fast approaching the age of adulthood when he can no longer dictate her life. I think he'll be in for a rude awakening when his daughter drops him just as coldly as he's dropped her. Not the jerk. He shoved aside his daughter's feelings for his own personal happiness. I think it's incredibly gross he even started being friends with the parent of his daughter's bully, much less dating and then marrying her. Did they tell this lovely story of how they met at their wedding? He's probably permanently damaged his relationship with his daughter. And your brother is the one who brought it up. You didn't just say it out of nowhere. If it wasn't your business, then maybe he shouldn't have been talking about it with you. He's just mad you called him out on his BS. Am I the jerk for telling my acquaintance she should either improve herself or lower her standards if she wants to find a man? I have an acquaintance named Lola. She's 26 and she's single, and she's been looking for a partner for a very long time. She's on every dating app and wears white whenever we go out in order to manifest a husband. I don't choose to hang out with her alone, and you'll see why. But she is friends with a couple of my friends, so we hang out in groups a lot together. When we hang out, she constantly complains about her dating life. Even if we're talking about something completely different, she finds ways to make this conversation about her boy troubles. Though I avoid direct conversation with her about this and leave it to others to validate her, it has become abundantly clear why she can't get a man. Lola has a long list of demands, most of which she does not meet. She wants someone who is ambitious in his career and makes 6 figures. She works part-time and lives with her parents and doesn't seem to be in a hurry to move out. He needs to go to the gym regularly and take care of his body. Lola is not in shape and she hates exercise. He needs to play an instrument and be into music. Lola says she never picked up an instrument in her life. He has to be over 6'2". Lola is 5'2". She complains that when we go out, no guys approach her, but I've seen plenty of guys ask her to dance, buy her a drink, etc., and she just rejects all of them. I stay quiet when Lola goes on her long, frequent rants, but a few days ago we were at a brunch with some of our friends and she asked me specifically for advice. My fiancé, Jim, is tall, athletic, and ambitious, and musically gifted, and she wanted to know how I got him. I tried my best to explain to her nicely that people tend to choose partners who are similar to themselves. Jim and I go to the gym together every day. We both are very dedicated to our jobs, and we have a lot of similar hobbies and interests, so we have a lot to talk about. I told her that if she wants to find a man like that, she should consider applying herself more in her job, going to the gym, and picking up a hobby she wants her partner to have. Otherwise, she could either date a guy that's interested in her as she is, or be comfortable with being single. I thought I was being very polite, but this completely ruined the mood. Lola got really upset and accused me of shaming her. One of my friends told me Lola is worthy and deserving of a great guy and doesn't need to change herself. I effectively ended the brunch with what I thought was helpful advice. Afterwards, I got some text from friends demanding I apologize to Lola, but others supporting me and telling me that I was right and Lola is way too sensitive. I was trying to help, but would it have been better if I just lied? Was that an inappropriate thing to say in that setting? Was it a jerk move for me to give her the advice? Not the jerk. You gave Lola honest and helpful advice when she asked for it. You didn't shame her. You just pointed out that people often date those with similar lifestyles. If she wants a fit, successful guy, she should work on those things herself. Lola got defensive when faced with the truth. Your friends are enabling her unrealistic expectations by saying that she deserves an amazing guy no matter what. Sometimes we need to hear hard truths from our friends, even if it hurts at first. Not to mention, there are many amazing guys who might not check off all the items on her laundry list. She's looking at a few mostly superficial things. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for kicking my brother and his family out after his son stole my engagement ring? The reason I, 26 male, know is because I literally caught him in my room going through my things, and it's on camera. My nephew is 9 and has a habit of stealing things.
They've gotten in trouble a few times at stores because he'd leave with something in his pockets. But of course, because he's a kid, they usually just say that he forgot he had it. Even at school, my brother has told me that they've had to come talk to the principal a couple of times. Doesn't seem like they've done anything to stop it. They had to come stay here with me because my brother lost his job and they weren't going to make it with all their bills, including rent. He's doing Uber right now while he searches for a job and they can move out. I didn't want them living with me because of my nephew specifically, but family's family, I guess. A month ago, I finally bought an engagement ring for my girlfriend that I was planning on proposing to soon. But now, I don't know. It's a $4,000 ring that I spent over a year saving up for. It's been hidden in my room under one of my drawers. One time, when I found him snooping in my room, I told my brother to control his kid, then got one of those cheap spy cams in my room just in case. Then last week, I noticed it was out of its box. After checking the camera, it showed he was in there again when I wasn't home. My brother and his wife have yelled at him. He says he left it by the TV in the guest room, but it's not there. They looked through all their stuff and his too. I know for a fact he's lying about not having it because that's the same thing he told me about one of my watches that he took, then ended up finding it. By the second day, my brother tells me they can't find it at all, and I told him either they find the ring or he repays me the $4,000 I spent on it. If not, they can't stay here anymore. My brother got really upset. He told me I know how their situation is right now, and yeah, it's a tough spot, but I couldn't ignore the fact that this kid he can't even parent took something extremely important to me that cost a lot of time and money. They were given a week to leave my house if they don't find the ring. They're having to stay at a cheap motel, but my brother won't stop begging to come back because what they're paying right now each night is coming directly out of their savings. He won't stop calling me heartless about letting something like this come between helping them out through a difficult time, and my nephew keeps saying that he's sorry. It's just hard right now to want them around. Don't even know what to do about the ring, and every time I think about it, it just makes me so mad that it's hard to care about their situation. Does that make me a jerk? Not the jerk. It's a terrible situation, but they should have taken measures sooner to get the kid to stop stealing. Also, I'm not sure a kid that young can do anything with a $4,000 ring. It's not like he can go to a pawn shop and sell it. Do you have homeowner's insurance? Perhaps you can make a claim. However, that may cause more problems. Is it possible that your sister-in-law or brother found and sold the ring themselves? OP. He likes shiny stuff. He stole a kid's bag of marbles from school just because he liked how shiny they were. Doesn't necessarily steal things because he thinks he can make money off of it. They sold the ring. That's why they can't give it back. What a load of thieves. OP. My watch he stole is worth way more than the ring, and my brother already knew that because a year ago he was surprised I even owned one of these. I have a wealthy buddy who gives out these kinds of gifts like they're free candy. If that was even the plan, they would have been smarter selling that instead, so I highly doubt they even did this. The thing with kleptomaniacs, they often don't know what to do with the things they steal. He may have washed it down the sink or flushed it down the toilet, buried it in the garden or something just to hide it. It's not so much about having things, it's about taking them. It's highly unfortunate that he took something so important, and his parents definitely need to get him help and should have done so already, which could have prevented all of this. OP. I've never thought about this. All weekend, I've been doing a deep cleaning trying to see if maybe he hid it somewhere. I'm praying that I find it soon. The watch he took from me was literally hidden inside one of his pairs of shoes in the closet. I don't know why he does this, but there's definitely been times that he's strategically hidden things that he stole. Update. I found the ring. It was a stressful day doing a deeper search in my house, trying to think like my nephew and looking for places where I think he'd hide something if he really didn't want it to be found. And the decision was, if it really wasn't found and my brother wasn't able to get him to talk, or they wouldn't be able to pay me back what I'm owed, then the police would get involved. He did beg me not to, but I told him, then you better pay. I find it or you come up with the money to pay me for it. Guess both of our prayers worked, because guess where I found it? In the sink. The sink! And that's thanks to the comments who told me to look in those places. I don't know what I would have done otherwise. It was the sink that was in their guest room too. I'm glad he didn't just throw it away. You guys don't know how relieved I feel. Took some work to remove the trap under the sink to get it out, but I was just so happy to find it. The same night that my girlfriend, fiance, got back, I proposed to her and she said yes. After my brother heard about me finding the ring, he thought this meant that they could come back. I said no. He wanted to argue about this again. All I told him was that he's lucky I haven't gone to the cops since there was already video evidence of his son taking the ring, and there's no way I'm letting them back in when my nephew wouldn't even say where he put the ring. I talked with my nephew myself after I found the ring, but he just said he didn't want to tell anyone because then I'd be mad at him for hiding it. Honestly, I just don't have the energy for them anymore. His problem is their problem, and hopefully they get him help before it's too late. Only thing important to me is my fiance and I starting our lives and planning our wedding. I know that my husband is cheating on me with my best friend, but if I left, he will take half. I'm a 40-year-old mother of a daughter who's 5. I've been married to my husband for 12 years. About 10 years ago, I started my business, and it's my pride and joy. I love my life and I enjoy my work. 2 years ago, I lost my beautiful mother to cancer. It all happened in 5 weeks and she was so young, 55 years old. It sent me into shock and depression. A short while before that, my best friend found out that her husband cheated and he left her for his mistress. It was a hard time and my best friend and I became even closer than ever before. She moved in with me for a while after my mother passed because I wasn't really functioning and she was homeless. My best friend lived with us for 1 year and they started hooking up with my husband toward the end of that year. That's when I got home early and I heard them. I ran out in shock. I came back home a few hours later pretending nothing had happened. I managed to smoothly find her a place because I couldn't bear it happening in my home, my sanctuary, my happy place where I live with my daughter. My best friend had already found herself a job and I took the opportunity to find her the apartment near her job. She was grateful and I was a bit more relieved. The affair is still going on. If I leave, he will take half. It will ruin me and my business and what I'm trying to build for me and my baby. No, I don't want to leave. It is so unfair that he's the one cheating and I'm the one who will pay if I said anything. I refuse, so I'm letting it happen. Instead, I wrote him off as my companion and safety blanket. I still have lots to be grateful for. My baby, my family, and my beautiful home, and my business. Most of the time, I'm content and happy, even though I myself don't know how I'm doing it. Maybe it's the numbness or resignation, or maybe it is true contentment. But sometimes, when everything is 100 times magnified, I can barely contain my panic. Especially at night when he wakes me up because I'm crying. Again, "Are you having a nightmare?" And he tried to kiss and cuddle me to make me feel safe. I'm here, you're safe. I wish I could tell him that my nightmares are my escape from my reality with him and that his shoulders aren't safe. He rarely asks why I'm crying. He probably thinks it's because of Mom, because that's what I tell him. But sometimes I feel like he knows or that he can't help himself wondering, "What's going on behind those eyes? What do you mean? I can't read your face anymore." My panic has increased more these past few months since he started paying me attention again. The first period after Mom's passing, he never bothered me out of courtesy, I suppose. Then he had her, so he didn't need me. But now, I don't know what changed. They're still together, so what does he want from me? Is he testing me? I never understood why they're doing what they're doing either. I've seen their texts. There's no love there, no respect, no warmth. Not what I would expect from two people who are cheating together, especially not when the stakes are so high. You would think that they love each other so much that they're willing to pay the price in case they're caught. No, there's a lot of anger, fighting, and resentment. A lot of guilt. He calls himself and her disgusting or shells of a human being. Is that too some sort of love? I don't know why I'm writing here. I googled about infidelity and self-help, and I ended up in this community, and I read so many similar stories. Maybe I would feel better writing my own down. Please don't think too ill of me. I know that I'm pathetic, but I used to have more dignity. As someone who found out his wife had been having an affair for 10 years with the best man from our wedding, I left and she took more than half. And despite it all, I can say with the confidence born of experience that some things are worth paying for. My life improved immediately after parting company with someone who was not willing to commit to the same degree as me. Just my 2 cents.
Karen demands I buy her a second home. My husband and I moved out of our home state almost 5 years ago to start our careers. We were lucky enough to find affordable living arrangements in a neighboring state and were able to buy our own home within a year. Despite our student loan debts, we were responsible with our money and didn't have any additional payments other than our mortgage. We both worked 6 to 7 days a week to maintain our financial stability and pay off our loans, and we don't have kids yet because we're trying to pay down our debts. We have about $280,000 in school debt plus our mortgage, which is about $176,000. However, recently my mother-in-law has been pushing for us to buy a house in our home state that she can use for her occasional visits, which are about 4 to 5 times a year. She wants us to split the mortgage payments between the two of us, but we can't afford this additional expense, especially if we plan to start a family soon. Moreover, we barely have time to maintain our own home, let alone a second one, and renting it out when it's not in use could be an even bigger headache. When my husband brought up the idea of splitting the mortgage payment with me, I immediately put the brakes on it. We needed to take a good hard look at our finances before committing to anything. My husband had never seen what a monthly student loan payment looks like since our federal loans have been frozen since he graduated, and I had been paying mine off even during lockdown. I reminded him that we both work too much already and that I would prefer spending quality time together rather than him working more to make payments for an extra house. My mother-in-law did not take kindly to my refusal and has been cold towards me ever since. However, my husband has agreed to seek financial advice to see the bigger picture. I'm hoping that we can find a solution that works for all parties involved without jeopardizing our financial stability or our future plans to start a family. Long-winded, I know. So, am I the jerk? She only wants to use it when she comes to visit, which is about 4 or 5 times a year? What a horrible waste of money. They have these things called hotels, motels, Airbnbs, etc. Not the jerk. Mother-in-law did not appreciate you not agreeing? Mother-in-law is a huge narcissist to expect you to pay and put her up in a house of luxury when you are a struggling early career family. Do not do this. Die on this hill. Not the jerk. Your husband is a jerk for letting his mom think even for a second that this would be a possibility before discussing it with you and the two of you running the numbers together. You're not the bad guy for pointing out the obvious. You two cannot afford to take on additional debt or expenses. He needs to go back to his mother and make it clear that this is not financially feasible and that you are not to blame. The fact that he even considered paying half of the mortgage for his mom to get his second home while you two are nowhere near paying off your first or your student loans is baffling to me. Is he that bad with money or that much of a mama's boy? Either way, pump the brakes on having kids until you two have a very serious talk about finances. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend I told you so after her friend tried to get with her? My girlfriend and I have been together for about a year now. My girlfriend has more than a few guy friends, and I'm not one of those guys that thinks men and women can't be friends. However, with 2 of these guys, it's very clear that they want more than just friendship from her. Like clear as day, to the point where I don't get how she doesn't see it. If I can notice just by the weird energy they try to exude when I'm present, she should be able to get it too, right? Wrong. Anytime I've pointed this out, she gets upset with me. She tells me that I am being jealous and reading into things that aren't there. I argue back that I'm just letting her know, and as a guy, I can probably tell much better than she can realize for herself. So, 2 nights ago, she was hanging out with her friends, and this guy was present. From what she told me, they were all drinking, and he said some things that implied he'd want to get with her. She was made uncomfortable by this, and the night ended shortly after. Fast forward to yesterday morning, she got a series of texts apologizing for what he said, and then backpedaling and saying he would treat her so much better than me, and she's wasting her time with me. She of course said no and was upset with him. After she told me, I just read the texts and simply said, "Wow, who could have seen this coming?" a bit sarcastically. This set her off and she got mad. She said that I was being such a huge jerk to her and she had no way of seeing this coming. She's been upset with me since. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. So someone made your girlfriend uncomfortable, overstepped boundaries. She did everything right, told him to get lost, and instead of comforting her and making sure she's okay, you scold her? Are you insane? She lost a friend, and you tell her she deserved it? Huge jerk. Where was the scolding? He was insensitive, yes. That's not equal to a scolding. He didn't accuse her of doing anything wrong. He was unsurprised and insensitive to her being surprised. It wasn't so much a scolding, but an "I told you so," which in my opinion is much worse, because you can at least pretend that a scolding comes from a place of concern. An "I told you so" is pretty obviously born out of satisfaction of being right, regardless of how the other person was affected. Not the jerk. But come on, man, there was no need to gloat. She's probably also sad that someone she thought of as a friend disrespected her relationship and basically only wanted to hang around with her just to date her. Not the jerk. Most people are saying you're the jerk for the "wow, who could have seen this coming?" But the fact is, you were right, and nowhere in your story did she affirm that you had been right all along. If she had said, "OP, you were right, and I shouldn't have dismissed your perspective so quickly," you probably wouldn't have felt any need to say, "I told you so." What's most important now is that you both work together so that in the future you're playing on the same team instead of me versus her. Not the jerk. Actual men in real life will tell you that you're 100% correct. Most of these guys on Reddit, their opinions don't really count since most of them have never had a girlfriend and they all just compete for karma points on here. But my advice to you, break up with her now. Find someone who's smart enough to know that all of her would-be guy friends are just hoping and waiting for an opportunity to hook up. Find someone who understands how guys actually operate and who isn't looking for attention from dudes as a source of validation. That's how I knew my wife was the one when we met. We both worked at Target at the time, and I kept trying to get her to hang out with me as friends, but she kept turning me down, saying she never hung out with one-on-one guys because they always just tried to get with her. Well, once I asked her if we could try actually dating each other, since that was what I really wanted, she agreed and we were official within a few days. Now we're about to have our third kid and we couldn't be happier. Again, it may not be easy, but find someone who understands the real motive that men will always have. You'll both be much better off. I labeled all of the bottles in the house since my adult kids are idiots. I have 2 of my kids living here with me. One has graduated from college and the other is a junior. I have to purchase medicated shampoo because of a scalp condition. It's by prescription and it's expensive. It also comes in packaging that's meant to be stored upright. Not on its side and definitely not upside down. My daughter has her hair products in the shower and I do not touch them. My son also keeps his Axe body wash, shampoo and conditioner, and woman repellent in the shower. My son also keeps his Axe body wash and shampoo and conditioner in the shower. I also do not touch it since I have zero desire to smell like a high school locker room. I keep my shampoo in there as well since it's my house and I can keep my crap wherever I want. For some reason, the 2 of them cannot understand that not all packaging is meant to be upside down. They've already wasted an entire bottle of my shampoo by storing it upside down after they touched it for some reason. It all dripped out of the spout, which is not engineered for that. I talked to them both about it, and I explained that they should not touch my stuff, and that if they accidentally tip over my shampoo, it was meant to be stored with the lid at the top. I came home last week to find my shampoo leaking out of the bottle again, upside down. I ordered 500 stickers that say, "This side up," with an arrow pointing upward when the words are upright, and I put them on everything in the house that might leak, with my shampoo being literally covered in them. They had friends over last weekend and they noticed that the relish, ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, everything else were all labeled. My kids were embarrassed when they explained why. They think I'm a jerk for putting labels on everything since they only mess with the shampoo. Since it is an $80 bottle, I said I would take off all the labels if they agree to pay for my shampoo. Thus far, they have declined. Not the jerk. My kids are the same way. Your kids can either learn to leave your stuff alone, put it back the way it was, pay for your medication, or deal with the labels. There are several reasonable choices there. Not the jerk. You gave them a chance. You told them why, and they still did it. Sometimes embarrassment is needed, and this was only in your house, so it's not like you forced their friends to see it. Am I the jerk for making my nephew cry on his birthday party over some gifts? I'm female, 26. My sister, who's 29, has a son, Eric, who's 8 years old. I don't visit a lot. We live far away, but I see them, and most of my family, at birthdays and holidays. When I visit, I usually buy Eric a toy or some candy, as he's my only nephew. To be honest, I like to spoil him, and maybe I am a little bit to blame for what happened too. It was Eric's birthday this week. I visited them, and I brought him a nice toy car. The car was quite big and had lights and stuff. When I got to the party, I wished him a happy birthday and handed him the gift. He opened it and loved it. He said, "So far, this is the best one," which at the time I thought he was just excited, but with what happened later, I kinda get the idea it was intended to be more malicious. Like an hour or so after the party started, when everybody had already arrived, Eric made an announcement to the table in which the adults were sitting. He said that I've won and that I was now the person who he loved the most because my gift was the one he liked the most. I thought it was sweet that he liked it. Then he told my mom that her gift sucked. She brought him a board game, so he didn't love her anymore. He also told one of his friends that next year he won't be invited because his gift was poor. He gifted him a set of Dinosaur figures. I think this whole thing of ranking the gifts people got him was pretty crappy. I expected my sister or her husband to say something, but they didn't. They just laughed. So I told Eric that he's not supposed to say that about his gifts. People get him what they can, and he should be grateful with it. He then said he doesn't understand why he has to love people who don't buy him nice gifts. I genuinely can't believe my sister is teaching this BS to her son. His dad told him, "Yeah, they should give you all the best." So I then again told him that a person's worth is not about how expensive or big the gift they got him was, and that if he thought that way, then I will not be continuing to buy him gifts. Eric started to cry. My sister told me off because I made him cry, but most of my family and some of her in-laws were on my side and told them it was bad to teach their kids such things. Our mom was quite affected and I wanted to leave too, so we left after that. My sister texted me later to call me a jerk for leaving before the candles were blown out and for telling her kid he won't get any more gifts from me. She said I shouldn't make empty threats like that. I said that it's not an empty threat. It's a promise until they teach their kids some manners. Am I wrong for discussing this when my nephew was present? Am I being unreasonable to him since he's young? And would I be wrong in the future if I keep my promise and do not buy him a gift the next year we see each other? Not the jerk. What he did was incredibly rude and hurtful, especially when he said one of his friends wouldn't be invited again. I don't care that he's 8. The other kid was probably around the same age. I'm glad you're not enabling him. It's great if you buy people gifts. I'm a gift giver. But it's one way of showing love, and it's not a reason to be rude if the giver put effort into it. Not the jerk. That kid is lacking discipline and common decency. The fact that the parents are making excuses for it is just awful. They're raising an entitled brat. Your nephew has learned a valuable lesson. If he treats people poorly, then there will be consequences. Good on you for teaching him this when his parents could not. Am I the jerk for locking up my snacks and calling out the thief? I work in an office and share it with a couple of people. I like to snack. I eat through the day instead of having a huge lunch. I just have a little snack and watch an episode of my current show. I always bring it from home on Mondays. This week, it was delicious cheese, crackers, apples, cereal, and oh so wonderful Jell-O. A coworker of mine, let's call her Maddie, from a different office, saw my snacks and knows I snack, mentioned how much I brought and how good it looked. I said thanks and started putting it away in my drawer and fridge, leaving the Jell-O out because I was going to smack on that amazing strawberry jiggle. I left work early on Monday and had left my Jell-O out. I came in Tuesday and my office mate said, "Lock your drawers because people are trying to take your stuff." She's the real MVP. I 100% don't mind sharing when people ask, but to just take my stuff without permission? As an only child, that's a huge no-no for me. My office mates know this. They also bring in snacks for themselves, and we often treat it like elementary school lunch, trading snacks during our lunch period. A different coworker, Steve, came in and tried taking my Jell-O off my desk. Our MVP said, No, don't take her stuff." Steve said, "She shares, I can take it." MVP, No, that snack is from her home. If you want snacks, bring it in like she does." Steve left defeated. Maddie comes in. "Can I have a key to your fridge? I want cheese." MVP once again guarded the goods. I locked up all of my snacks. Maddie comes in a couple hours later, taking Tums out of my drawer. This time, our hero cannot stop her. Tuesday, I come back and lock up all of my snacks. I have to get up and move around constantly. One of the times I wasn't there, once again, Maddie comes creeping. She was not successful. She asks me why I have everything locked. I said, because thieves come in and take stuff without permission. She got really silent and walked away. Though my mom said she might have thought it was okay since I share and said I was a jerk. Reddit, am I? Isn't it basic human knowledge that taking stuff without permission is stealing? Even if I share. Also, everyone has my number. If they're truly hungry, they can text me and ask. Edit. Thank you to everyone that confirmed I was in fact not a jerk. To those criticizing my post for bad English or punctuation, etc., English is my second language, and I typed this out on my phone. Not the jerk. People assuming that they can automatically take what's yours just because you share is garbage behavior. They can ask you if they want something. My girlfriend of 5 years broke up with me and ghosted me for no reason. Am I wrong for throwing away all of her stuff? So my girlfriend, 25 female, and I, 25 male, were in a relationship for the last 5 years. Last week, she texted me that we were done, and that was her last message before she blocked me. She gave me no heads up. I was planning on proposing to her just next month. Her sister did reach out to me, saying it was not my fault and she understood my hurt, but that for my mental health, it was better to never contact them again, and that maybe in the future, my girlfriend might reach out to me. It's been a week now, and I'm still obviously distraught, but my girlfriend did have a lot of her stuff in my home. Would I be wrong if I just dumped it all out? That does include a lot of mementos of her deceased grandmother, who she was extremely close to. Box it up. Send a text or call the sister to come pick it up. Also inform her that you aren't ever interested in your ex reaching out to you in the future. Then go find a woman who doesn't play these kinds of games. The blocking is actually a good thing in my opinion. It's a good indicator that things are done and nothing else needs to be talked about. Move on for your own mental health, OP. Love yourself and do something nice for yourself. Update. I boxed up all my ex's stuff yesterday, drove over to her sister's house this morning, and dropped the boxes off. I got a text from her sister a couple of minutes ago where she thanked me, was sorry for what I was going through, and texted a bunch of other stuff. It was a really long text, and I couldn't bother reading past the first couple of lines. She was still typing something as I saw the 3 dots, but I couldn't be bothered anymore, so I blocked her. And so that is that. Trying to pick up the pieces and move on, I guess. Oh well. Thanks for the advice, Reddit. Going to try and move to a different state soon and start fresh. Just so you know, your previous girlfriend will hit you up because she wants to talk or clear things and may say it's for closure. It is for her, not you. Do yourself a solid and don't bother with that. I remember being ghosted like this a day after my birthday in a 6-year relationship. He was cheating on me and wanted to date guilt-free, just blocked me everywhere, and his sister wasn't kind enough to let me know. She blocked me as well, so I get how OP feels. My former spouse did this, made an announcement that he was divorcing me and walked out. After 20 years of being married, refused any communication. I even had to file for my own surprise divorce because he couldn't be bothered to acknowledge my existence. My heart goes out to you, OP. Been there, and it is confusing, heartbreaking, and so deeply hurtful. My fiance and partner of 8 years just dipped out one day, nowhere to be found. Everyone advised me to give him space, not to contact him, and it was probably just cold feet. Phoned me 3 weeks later and ended it in a 1-minute hollow conversation with no explanation to why this was happening. The week before we were moving to a new place. Left all his stuff for me to move. His mom showed up at my work months later to get his items while he hid in his mom's car. That was fun. Refused to sign off on all joint items, costing me money and so much effort to get him removed. Canceling our wedding was exhausting and expensive. He came from money, but I did not. I had saved for years for our wedding. It left me with $500 to my name at the time. Less than a year later, he was married to his friend, who I had felt uncomfortable with, and we had arguments over. Shocker. Always wondered what story they told at their wedding. He thankfully left our dog, who eventually introduced me to my husband, so that was a win. 2 kids later, and I'm thankful my life did not go that way. Still, Brad, I hope you step on a Lego in the middle of the night and your socks remain forever smelly and damp wherever you are. Am I the jerk for not letting my wife hijack a free vacation? I'm 39, male. One of my hobbies is entering raffles, sweepstakes, radio contests, etc. I've won tickets to concerts, sporting events, some household items, gift cards, but never a grand prize like a car or a vacation. Until last month when I won a free trip for 4 people to Florida for 5 nights. Obviously, I was super excited and I told my wife, who's 38, about it right away. After our initial excitement wore off and we started talking about details, it became apparent we had conflicting ideas about this trip. Before I could even make suggestions about what I want this trip to be, my wife brought up how excited her 11-year-old daughter would be and how we could go to Disney, SeaWorld, etc. She then said that we can bring her mom with us to help watch her daughter so that we could have some time for ourselves. She was so excited about it and was getting wrapped up in planning things without even hearing what I wanted. I told her that all of that sounds like fun, but I was thinking that we could invite another couple and have it be the 4 of us instead of bringing my stepdaughter and mother-in-law with us. She did not like my idea one bit and told me that she wouldn't feel right taking a free trip like that and leaving her daughter behind. She also said that her mom has never been to Florida and this would be a perfect opportunity for her to go there. We argued back and forth a little bit before deciding to take a break and come back to it before telling anyone about it. Well, that lasted about 24 hours before my wife let it slip to her daughter that I had won a trip. So of course, stepdaughter immediately got excited about it and started looking into all the things she wants to do. I asked my wife why she told her daughter and she said it was an accident, which, come on. It started a fight between us and emotions got a little high. I told her she was wrong to bring her daughter into this after we agreed to wait and that I never agreed to take stepdaughter or mother-in-law on this trip. I told her that I was the one who won the trip and she was acting like this was something specifically for her. She told me I was being selfish and that we should include those closest to us in something like this, especially when neither stepdaughter or mother-in-law have ever been to Florida. She said that bringing another couple and leaving her daughter home would be cruel, especially now that she's so excited about it. I told her that her daughter is only excited about it because she decided to blab to her about it instead of waiting like we had agreed to. I told her if she wants to bring her daughter and mother-in-law, then she can also pick someone else to go with because I would rather stay home by myself than go on a vacation where I don't get to be involved in any decisions. I said that if she wants to go that route, she certainly can, but I'm not paying for any of it. We have separate finances. Now she thinks I'm being a jerk and should be happy about having a free family trip. Not the jerk. While I see both sides of the coin, what it comes down to is that you won the trip. You should get to decide how it's used. I would certainly be bummed if my spouse won a trip and then wanted to take it without me, but that's not what's happening here, and I think your wife's insistence on controlling this and her judgment of you for not having the same vision for the trip is really unfair. You aren't a bad person or a bad stepfather for wanting to take this trip with your friends. Lots of couples do this. It's not cool of her to act like you're a jerk just for having another idea. And I agree with you that it was especially out of line for her to tell her daughter, accidentally or not, about the trip because she knew that would make it harder on you. Really not cool. The one other thing that stands out to me about this is how you initially only referred to your stepdaughter as your wife's daughter, repeated references to her daughter. I wonder if there's a dynamic in play where your wife worries your stepdaughter doesn't feel like she's part of the family, or if the girl worries about losing her mom, etc. It's a stretch based on what I'm seeing, admittedly. Just thought I'd plant that seed here. That was very telling. If OP had said something along the lines of, "Stepdaughter and I get along, but just not close enough to really enjoy a 5-day vacation," or "Mother-in-law and I are not close enough where I'd be comfortable vacationing together." Both of those are extremely common. I wonder how long they've been married and what the custody situation is. Getting married to a single parent with no relationship or plan to have a relationship with the kid seems wild to me always. Agreed. It's kind of weird to want to leave the daughter out when you're married to her mom. She's 11. Mommy is going on a trip to Florida. Like, dang, you married this woman, OP. She has a kid that's not an adult. Man up. I'd offer to bring one male friend and mother-in-law can stay home. But to be honest, I wouldn't want to be the male friend in this situation. My husband and I have taken several trips without our kids. It's a great tool to keep the marriage strong. Kids can deal. You talk about your wife and her daughter. Is that not your stepdaughter? Are you not married to your wife? This whole thing reads like you're not really a part of your own family, and that's weird. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. When my ex learned to not ask me to do anything for him anymore. Backstory. I divorced my ex a little over 9 years ago after 14 years of marriage. I won't go into the specifics as to why, but suffice it to say he was a lying, cheating jerk. Even during the marriage, I tended to not be all that assertive until I finally had my fill and grew a backbone. He hated that. He did not like hearing the word no from me or in doing things my own way. So fast forward to a month after we were officially divorced. He was in his new place and I was in my house, formerly the house we shared, with our sons, but he still had a ton of his stuff there. Stuff I didn't want, even though I paid for a lot of it, but stuff I knew he really wanted. He finally reached out and demanded, not asked, demanded that I send him his stuff. Just toss it all in boxes and send it over to him. His exact words. Mind you, he was only about 10 miles away from me at that point and could have easily come over to do it himself. He didn't want to do that because he'd have to see me, something he was actively trying not to do. Cue the malicious compliance. Now, a lot of what he had were collectibles. No details, but some of it was fairly expensive and fragile. So I did as he asked. Correction, demanded. I tossed it all into numerous boxes. Now, some of the truly expensive items, I did take great care in packaging them, only because I knew my sons would probably eventually want them. But for the stuff I knew my ex really wanted and cared a lot about, nah, I just tossed it all in a box without a care in the world. Now, I did inspect everything, and while I just dumped them in boxes, nothing was damaged by me. I also took pictures of it to prove it. So once I closed them all up, I told him to either get his butt over here to pick it up or get someone to do it for him. He got someone to do it. Now, I was not at the house when this person picked everything up, but my sons and sister were. They did not know how everything was packed. They only showed him the boxes. They told me that the person who picked up the boxes quite literally just tossed them into the back of his pickup without a care in the world and then sped away. Later that night, I got a call from my ex who started calling me names for destroying all of his stuff. I told him that everything was fine before I closed the boxes up and I had proof of it. I then said that maybe next time, be a bit nicer to me when making requests and reminded him that he demanded I toss them all in the boxes, but he didn't tell me to be gentle in doing so. I hung up on him and proceeded to enjoy my celebratory glass of wine that evening, hoping that he was enjoying his shattered remains. My neighbor keeps going in my yard and playing with their kids without my permission. So my husband and I just bought our first home. Our sons are ages 1 and 2, and we were very excited to finally have a yard with a swing set for our boys and for our 10-year-old mini labradoodle to play. The problem is that the house didn't have a fence around the yard, so we planned on installing one in the spring since we just moved in during the winter. We also were excited to live in a neighborhood with other families so that we could all make potential friends in the neighborhood. When we moved in, not a single neighbor greeted us or welcomed us to the neighborhood. We didn't care at the time, but I feel like it should be mentioned now. Also, right behind our backyard, literally 15 feet, so close that it looks like it's touching our yard, is the back of an elementary school with a huge, new and gorgeous public playground. Yesterday, my husband and I heard screaming from our yard and noticed 2 kids and a large man were playing in our yard on and around our swing set. We had no clue who these people were in our yard, and after a long bit of time passed, we were confused why they thought it was all right to be on our property for so long without knowing us whatsoever or asking permission. We take our kids outside every day. It's nice out, so we put on our jackets and shoes to go out and speak with the random kids and the man, but they had left. Today, we see the same kids and a woman outside playing in our yard. My husband takes our dog outside to walk him and goes to speak with the woman. She tells him that she just moved from South Carolina and is the daughter-in-law of the woman who owns the house next to ours, and that her husband and kids would be staying there for a while. She said her husband grew up in the house and lived there his entire life. She says that her husband asked the previous owners of our house if they could play in our yard, and they told them that they could. In my head, I'm like, well, why does that matter if you knew that there are new owners here, which they do? My husband explains politely that we do not feel comfortable with them playing in our yard because they did so without asking us first, and because if anything happens to them while they're on our property, we would be liable in any type of lawsuit. My father is a lawyer, so we were taught all the laws around homeowning.
My husband came inside after saying goodbye, and she left with her kids soon after. Next, her husband arrives home from work while my husband is going to the store. He immediately takes his kids into our backyard and plays the entire time my husband is gone. My husband comes home from the store, and the neighbors leave our yard. My husband goes to take the trash out, and the neighbors come back into our yard to our swing set with a large dog on a leash. My husband, not expecting another confrontation, just taking out the trash in his yard, walks up to the neighbor father and again explains that we do not feel comfortable with them playing on our property, yada yada yada. My husband also says twice in the conversation that the giant public playground is literally right behind our homes. The man says that his son is autistic, as if this is an excuse of why he takes him into our yard and not the public playground. In my head, I'm thinking, well, sir, my son is autistic too and loves water, like is totally obsessed with it. But my husband and I do not take him into our neighbors, especially someone we have never met or taken the time to say hello to, pools without asking permission. My husband tells him that our son is autistic too, and it doesn't mean they can come with their giant dog on our property without permission. My husband comes inside, thinking he got his point across and that the man would leave. But no, our neighbors decided after the second conversation to spend the next 4 hours in our backyard, going in and out of their house, then back into our yard as if it was their own. My husband and I do not know what to do in this situation, so humbly ask the opinion of the public. Honestly, if our neighbors would have introduced themselves and asked if they could play in our yard from the start, everything would have been a lot different. The reason my husband and I are so upset is because they played in our yard for long periods of time without knowing us or asking first. Then, after we nicely said we feel uncomfortable, they acted entitled to our property and playset, basically just ignored our existence, brought their huge scary-looking dog with them, and seemed to think that we were outrageously in the wrong for not thinking it was okay for them to hang out in our yard without asking. We did not go out a third time, honestly, because we do not know what the right thing to do here is. I know that legally they're in the wrong. They are trespassing on our property and should not be doing so. I personally would feel so weird as a mother taking my kids into someone else's yard to play without asking. My head would be racing because it would feel like a crime because technically it is. But if these neighbors are so insistent that what they did was perfectly fine and that my husband and I are the jerks basically, then is there some human decency, right versus wrong, common knowledge that I am unequipped with? Is it okay to play with your kids in your neighbor's yard on your neighbor's playset if you have never met your neighbor and made zero attempt of doing so or asking permission to use their property? Update. I just went to walk my dog and the neighbor was in my yard again with his kids and his big scary dog. His dog immediately started barking and growling towards my dog as my dog did his business. I thought to myself, why should my dog, who is still getting used to his new yard, have a stranger and his giant dog, 4 times the size of mine, just chilling in our yard? So I put my phone on record in my pocket and walked towards them with my dog. The entire time his dog was freaking out as we approached them, so I stayed about 10 feet away and said, "Hi." The man didn't look at me. He just held both his hands on his dog and looked annoyed that I was interrupting them in my backyard. I said my name and that I was the homeowner, and he still did not look at me. I asked nicely if they would stop trespassing in our yard. The man just said, "Yeah." So I said, "Thank you, we would really appreciate it." At that point, his dog lunged at mine, and my dog pulled away and managed to pull his head out of his collar. The man's dog went for my dog, so the man grabbed his dog with both hands, and I scooped up and held my 25-pound Labradoodle. I said that this was one of the many reasons why they should not be trespassing in our yard with their giant dog. The man said, "I heard you the first time," and I walked towards my home to get my dog inside. At this point, I'm highly regretting taking him out there to begin with. Dog mom fail. But then again, it is my own backyard. I'm also thinking, dude, you clearly didn't hear us the first time because this is the third time. Once I got inside, I looked out the window and they left my yard. I have the recording of our conversation just in case anything else happens. Call your local police station and ask what the process there is to have them officially trespassed. At a previous home, I had to give the man a verbal, "You are not welcome here." After that, he could be ticketed and arrested. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their neighbor? Please let us know. If you let entitled people walk all over you, they'll never stop. My daughter, who's 25, is obsessed with a blanket. I finally gave her a piece of my mind. I'll try and keep this short. I, 50, have a daughter who's 25. Recently, her boyfriend, who's 27, knitted her a blanket with her name knitted on it,
and it doesn't look the best. But for some reason, my daughter loves it, and whenever I'm visiting her apartment, she almost always has it on her when she's sitting on her couch or bed. It does get really cold where we live, but the extent to which she likes this blanket is odd, as if she's a kid who's obsessed with a stuffed animal or a toy. I recently asked her about it, and she said she likes it because her boyfriend made it, and it reminds her of him since they don't live together yet, and is extremely large on her, so it's comfortable. I told her that she was acting like a kid. She said that she wasn't. I repeated that she was definitely acting like a kid, and that I found it weird. She told me she had no idea why I would find it weird, and told me to leave her alone. I told her she was being infantilized, and it was disgusting. She said that she would kick me out of her apartment if I didn't stop arguing with her, so I remained quiet. I'm starting to think I may be the jerk for accusing her and her boyfriend of such things. Am I the jerk? You're the jerk. Normally, I would offer at least a brief explanation as to why I voted that way, but you just upset me. I've seen a lot of crap on this subreddit over the past few days since I started looking at it, but this is by far the craziest that I've seen. You really want a problem with your daughter over liking something her boyfriend made for her? Really? It doesn't matter that it doesn't look like a masterpiece. He made it for her, and it's special to her. It must be really sad being you. No one has ever put any effort into making you anything. That's probably for the best, because you wouldn't appreciate it anyway. Get out of here. Am I the jerk for asking for normal updates from my wife? I just want to make sure she's safe. My wife and I have known each other for 20 years. Dated for 7, been married for 2. We have a 16-month-old daughter together and a great marriage, generally speaking. As long as we have known each other, we trust each other without exception regarding serious things or any type of serious, life-altering bad decision that can happen to a married couple. We have silly, bickering-type disagreements, like I think most couples do, but there's never yelling, as neither of us grew up in a home where that thing was common, and we prefer to talk about what went wrong and come to a mutual agreement as to how to keep it from happening again. Anyways, there's this one issue that has been a recurring disagreement between us that I'm wondering if I'm being unreasonable and should just let it go, being the jerk for being frustrated when it happens, or if I'm justified in asking for it. The wife grew up in a home where once of age, she was allowed to go out with friends, come home whenever, and her parents did not expect any updates of any kind. I grew up with parents that also let me go out, but they wanted updates about where I was, who I was with, and when they could expect me to be home. Now, I can't get updates about anything from her as my spouse. I've told her time and time again that she can do whatever she wants, when she wants, and come home whenever she wants. I'm your husband, not your boss. All I want to know is where you are and when you think you'll be home. And when there's a chance, please let me know so I'm not at home worrying about you. But it doesn't happen. Today, she left town while I was at work, plans I was well aware of far in advance. But she did not tell me, "Okay, honey, I'm getting on the road, love you, I'll let you know when I'm there safe." She just left town and said nothing, and likely would not have said anything when she arrived. I say I deserve these minor updates. She says, "You knew I was leaving town days ago, so why do I have to tell you again when I actually go?" An important part of this rant worth noting is that I'm an ex-911 operator/police dispatcher, and I did that job for 10 years. I've heard the worst of things and know how bad it can get. So from that, anxiety stems my desire to know she's okay. We can track each other's locations through our phones for safety reasons, and we have always been able to. But again, that's not for lack of trust, it's for safety concerns. God forbid something could happen. Short of me using it to meet her outside with the baby because she gets excited when mommy gets home, it's not something I ever check. Thanks for your help. Not the jerk. You both have different ways of operating. She's very independent and not used to reporting to anyone. You did/do the check-in thing. I do think that it would be courteous to say, "I'm leaving on the road trip," and to let you know of arrival. Don't think it is required, though, to advise when one is going to the grocery store type of trip. You two need to discuss and come to an agreement, which will likely require compromises on both sides. This needs a lot of upvotes. I'm extremely independent and live alone, so when people ask me to check in, it feels infantilizing because I'm an adult woman who has lived alone in a major city for 6 years. I can take care of myself. I don't have to do it on a regular basis, so why would I do it the few times a year when I'm around family? A lot of adult men and women who can take care of themselves and who live alone are still attacked every single day. It's not infantilizing to want to ensure someone you care about is safe. Not the jerk. I wouldn't necessarily say you're being unreasonable, but I do think you should ease up on expecting unsolicited updates. If you know she's leaving town, do you text her, "Hey, let me know when you leave or get there safe"? I'm in a relationship with uneven habits like this, and my partner is just not wired to give that kind of feedback. If I ask after it, I almost always receive an answer though, because they're considerate. If she just ignores you, that's another story. Not the jerk. Part of marriage is learning to understand and accommodate another person's communication style and needs, and what you're expecting for is well within the realm of what she should be willing to do, especially since you have a kid together. Letting the other person know where you are and when to expect you is common courtesy when you have childcare to coordinate. Obviously, she's not a monster, but she should be willing to meet you at minimum halfway there. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy expected me to text him updates all the time, he'd need a new head.
Why would I need updates? You never leave this room.
How could you say that, Reddit boy?
Be in the conference room at the time meetings are scheduled to start. A couple decades ago, I was working as a network engineer for a consulting company. The company owner, Kim, was the best salesperson I've ever met, could sell ice to Eskimos. She had a temper, threw a shoe at me once, but great technical knowledge and knew when she didn't need something. After I'd been there a couple years, we got a new engineering manager. We all called him Jerk. Nice enough guy. It's just that around here, everyone named Richard is called Jerk. Normal company policy had always been that meetings would be announced over the intercom when they were ready to start. We had engineering meetings once a month, early morning. The next meeting was announced a little later than normal, but eventually it was announced and we all headed over. Jerk was not happy that few people were in the conference room at the time the meeting was scheduled to start. He made it crystal clear to us all that in the future, meetings would not be announced over the intercom, and he expected us all to be in the conference room at the time meetings are scheduled to start. We all knew the reason for that rule was that the owner was never ready for a meeting to start at the scheduled time. We all knew the reason for that rule was that the owner was never ready for a meeting to start at the scheduled time. She was always running late, or the previous meeting ran over, whatever. New manager flexing his authority and trying to whip us into shape with a dumb rule? Yeah, we didn't say anything. A few hours later, it's time for a meeting that actually includes the company owner. I head over to the conference room a few minutes early to find the door closed. I wait until meeting time, knock on the door, poke my head in, and ask if this was the customer meeting. The owner is like, "What? No! You know we announce meetings over the intercom. Why would you think that this was the customer meeting?" Me. Our new engineering manager announced at the engineering meeting this morning that meetings would no longer be announced over the intercom, and we were expected to be in the conference room at the time meetings are scheduled to start. I'm surprised his head didn't explode, the look she gave him. Kim. Meetings will be announced over the intercom when they are ready to start. Me. Okay, thank you. I close the door and leave. That was the one and only time he ever announced a new policy. I can do this all day. I worked in homes for disabled adults for over a decade. Every client had an ISP, individual service plan, and as a caregiver, it was our job to know what was outlined in each plan. Every year, the local baseball team hosts a night for the group homes. This was also when HR would come with any home that might need a hand. I got stuck with one of the most annoying HR people several years ago. Terry just thought she knew everything. She kept telling me I couldn't take photos of the clients. I could. We had photo permission. That one client didn't need their wheelchair to walk to the seating. They did, etc. We were seated next to another home that I used to be at, and so I helped those staff as needed, too. One client had in his plan that his socks, braces, and shoes only had to be worn in the van for safety reasons. We had worked hard with him to get him to that point. There was a lot of upset and punching involved, but we got there. Well, see, Terry thought she knew everything and insisted that this client had to have his footwear on. We kept trying to tell her that he wouldn't tolerate it. Her answer? Just do it. I'm right, you're wrong. Cue malicious compliance. Okay, bud, we have to put your footwear back on. And the other staff and I wrestled everything on. Not 5 minutes later, one shoe went sailing and landed next to Terry. Oh, bud, we can't throw our shoes. Next went the braces and the socks, which hit poor Terry in the back of the head. Soon after, while we were picking up those items, off came the other footwear, of which the shoe and the sock hit her head this time. Whoops, I know you don't like these, but we have to put them back on. Again, everything was taken off and launched. Every single thing hit Terry in the head again. I went to gather his things and said, "I am so sorry. We will get these back on ASAP." She handed them back to me and said, "Forget it. Obviously, the ISP needs to state that he can't have his footwear on. Let me make a note." She looks at his plan, looks at us, looks at it again. "Oh, he only has to have them on in the van?" Cackles. Am I the jerk for not letting my neighbors use my yard? I, 26 female, recently bought a house with my husband. Our house is a beachfront house with an amazing yard. The backyard is designed to basically look like a hidden oasis. It has a pool, a hot tub, water fountains on the side, and a small slide, all surrounded by trees and other plants. The trees give us privacy from both houses next to us, but still gives us a view of the beach. The backyard is why we bought the home, and we already spend the majority of our time being back there, even when my husband works. The entire backside of the house is mostly glass, so it's also what we see when we're in the house. It's definitely the focal point of our home. Yesterday, we started the construction on a new fence. This fence goes around the backyard with a gate only to the beach. We didn't think anything of it before I got a knock on my door this morning from someone who lives in the condos across the street from us. I've seen her a few times, but we never really talked. She introduced herself and then asked us what we were building in our yard. I just told her that we wanted to put up a fence before tourists start coming. This was recommended to us by our realtor. Marie kind of looked shocked and asked if we were putting a gate on the front. I said no, and that we already had a landscaper come and look to get more plants to put around it. She then asked me if I could put a gate in the front. I didn't really understand this, so I asked her to clarify when she explained that the previous owners would let people from the condo walk through their yard to get to the beach, because otherwise they have to walk 5 minutes down the street to get onto the beach, where there are lots of tourists. She said that mostly everyone in the condo started doing this over the past few years, especially people with kids. She also said that they would let people use their pool if they texted and asked. I immediately told her that no one would be in my yard unless I knew them. She obviously got upset by this and then said that basically everyone in the condos would be upset by this. I told her that I understand why they want to use my yard and that it's just to pass through, but I hate the idea of being in my backyard and having random people walking through. She started getting mad at me for it and saying that I'm ruining a lot of people's way of life by blocking this path. She claimed that a lot of people let their kids take this path to get to the beach. I did get annoyed, and I told her that I don't really care and that I will not let people into my yard. She tried to bring up the pool, but I just told her that I wasn't going to talk about it anymore. This was yesterday afternoon, and I've already seen people standing outside the condos and pointing to my house. I even had someone run over to talk to me and ask if I was really gating off the beach path. I've talked to both my neighbors who agree with me, but my friend and sister are both saying I'm in the wrong. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. If anything happens to these people on your property, you're liable. Who cares what happened in the past? The previous owners aren't the owners anymore. You are. Like the saying goes, your house, your rules. You also don't want people littering or destroying your yard. They have to walk 5 minutes. Oh, boo-hoo. Your friend and your sister don't own your property. What exactly did your friend and your sister say which would make you in the wrong? OP. My sister feels like this is a rich person issue and that they're not hurting anyone. My friend feels like anyone should have access to the beach and it's rude to make parents with kids walk down during the summer. Update. I do have a fence around my pool area. This is just to protect my yard. Secondly, we have indoor and outdoor cameras all around our house. Some are visible and some are hidden. We do already have a sign up that says that we are recording. The fence will also be finished by tomorrow afternoon, so it shouldn't be too long for us to have it up. I also called our local police and they said that they did not have a right to use our private property to access the beach, so everything is clear for me to move forward with. The previous owners had the house for 10 years and only let people use it for the past 3 years, so it's not long enough for any legal action to force me to give up my yard, per our lawyer. I called my realtor this morning and the owners called me after she talked to them and said a lot about the situation. They told me that they only use the house as a vacation home, and so they did let people cross during the summer, but when they were there, they put up a sign telling people to not use the path. They said that they didn't let people do it at first, but when they weren't home, people did it anyway. They also allowed certain people to use their pool only when they were in it themselves. It was never a free-for-all pool, and they even put the cover on it before leaving. The previous owners did also say that it was smart to put up a fence and recommended calling the condo manager. When I did call the condo manager, they asked if we could find a middle ground because they know that a lot of residents use my yard and kind of made it sound like they told residents that they could use this path. My neighbor thinks that they used it as a selling point because there were times where they would point towards our house specifically while people were looking at condos. Either way, my husband is having our lawyer send the condo a letter stating that no residents are allowed in our yard for any reason so that we have legal writing with them. A lot of my neighbors who live in the houses have messaged me and said that they're really happy I'm cutting off the path, so I feel like I made the right move. I've already put up no trespassing and no beach access signs and had permanent ones for the front of our yard and on the fences. I'm also putting up a privacy fence in the front and adding trees right in front of it so it's harder for people to jump it. We're also connecting our gate right to our neighbors so that there isn't a spot on the side where they can try and squeeze through. Either way, I'm going to cut off the path and I don't care if they hate me for it. Am I the jerk for telling anyone who asks why I don't bake for our haul anymore? I really like baking as a hobby. I don't believe in food waste, but I don't often want to eat all of the stuff I make. And the best way I can describe it is that I love to bake, but when it comes to eating it, I'm just like, nah. I'm not sure how to describe it. Anyways, I normally give my baked goods to friends and family. The tradition we have started when my brother said he couldn't come over to pick up a coconut cupcake pan because he's busy. I didn't plan for space in my fridge to keep the cupcakes and awkwardly left them in the apartment's common room, with permission from the security guard, of course. I left a note saying the cupcakes were free to whoever with my apartment number on it. The security guard said I had to. That started this semi-tradition of me putting whatever extra goods I have on a free table in the lobby area. Others started to do it a lot too. It's worked out well so far. I like the environment it's created. Problem came when one of the neighbors knocked on my door. She introduced herself, said she's from another apartment floor, and that she, in a visibly upset way, was very unhappy with me leaving unattended food out. One of her kids, allergic to peanuts, had some of my peanut butter brownies. I got very nervous hearing this and I apologized. She said it was fine, but wanted me to pay part of the cost of getting her kid help. I asked if we could talk it out and she agreed. I agreed to pay for the cab she took back and forth to the hospital, which I know is getting off easy for what happened. I apologized again and she said it was all fine, but to please be extra careful. Since then, I don't leave any food out at all because that situation made me nervous. I knew it wasn't the worst that could have happened, but still. My hall neighbor, let's call her Lily, asked if I was okay, noticing that it's been a while since I put anything out. I just told her that after what happened with the peanut butter allergy issue, I don't feel comfortable doing that anymore in case something like that happens again. Now, I didn't know Lily knew who I was talking about just based on the allergy issue alone. Specifically, they knew which kid I was talking about because they saw him take some. I guess Lily spread the word around because I got a knock from the lady again, and she asked why I told everyone to blame her. I explained that I did not blame or tell anyone to blame her in any way. One of our neighbors asked why the tradition died off, and I only said because of the allergy incident, but I never mentioned specifics like who it was or what they looked like, etc. She's mad and says I did that purposefully and will be speaking to the landlord to make a report. I apologized again and said I swear I did not mean for this to happen, but she stormed off. I'm not exactly sure what to do now. I don't hold anything against her or the kid, and I'm pretty mad at Lily for this. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Lady with the kids is out of line. She should be angrier at her own poor parenting. Every parent I know with a peanut allergy kid teaches those kids caution from a very young age. It's like, okay, what do we do before crossing the street? Stop, look, and listen. And what do we do when we see a plate of unattended cookies? Don't eat them because it could hurt them. Is it considerate to add a little card next to the food offerings, naming the food and potential allergens? Sure, that helps both kids and adults with allergies or food restrictions. While I normally don't like gossip, I'm kind of on Lily's side here. The mom deserves some negative press. I'd bet some of the other residents have come to the same conclusion and mom is embarrassed. Good, she should be. This isn't going to be the only plate of free brownies this kid sees in their life. I ruined my ex-boyfriend's life 20 plus years ago, and I just made sure that it stayed ruined. When I was in college back in the 90s, I met Jake, who was then 23, through mutual friends. He had already graduated and was planning to move to the opposite side of the United States for grad school,
and I had already been making plans to move with friends only a 90-minute drive away from where he was moving to. We had so much in common, fell in love, and it really seemed like fate, both planning to move 3,000 miles and landing so close together. He had 2 sisters and a younger brother who were all awesome people, and I became instant friends with them as well. Because he was in school and I was working, I would usually go to him to hang out on weekends. He was renting a house with 2 roommates, also in his program. We were young, so money was tight, but we had fun, went for taco dates, and spent a lot of time at his house where he was breeding and selling small animals. Jake was an animal science PhD student, so being around animals was normal, and I loved it. I met and became friends with his advisor's wife, Mary, who was in her mid-50s, who worked in administration at the university. She's a lovely woman, and I would often have lunch with her when I went over on the weekends. Jake was a teaching assistant, and I met with other people in the program and made friends with them faster than he did. After about 2 years of dating, I was at the house one day. We were laying in bed, and he said, out of the blue, he was concerned I had been gaining weight, and it made it harder for him to be attracted to me. No concern about my health. It was all about him finding me attractive. I sat up and said, well, then maybe you should make sure there's better food for me to eat than crackers and cheese when I come up on weekends. Even at 23, I didn't take that kind of BS. I had gained maybe 10 pounds since meeting him 2 years earlier, and I still wore the same size clothes, about a US size 6 to 8. I wasn't going to engage in a fight about it at all. It was his problem, not mine. So I asked him calmly, so what's your solution to this? He stared at me blankly and said, well, I guess that you should try to lose it. And I said, nah, I'm not going to do that. So what are you going to do about it? He said, well, I guess nothing. I wanted to let you know how I feel. And I said, cool, thank you. Went to sleep and drove home the next day as usual. We keep dating, and about 3 months later he called me and said he wanted to break up after close to 3 years. The reason, and I quote, you don't know enough about science. He felt like he couldn't have a conversation with me about his work where he didn't have to use common names for animals instead of scientific ones. I said, well, that's BS. What's the real reason? He said it was the real reason. He came to see me a month later to return something of mine, and I confronted him, demanding to know the real reason. He finally admitted that he had been seeing one of his undergrad students. Let's call her Meg. She was 19. He was then 26 and the teacher. I screamed at him to leave. My roommate threatened to throw him off of our second-floor balcony if he didn't go, and he left. It hit me all at once after he walked out, and I went from rage to stunned laughter. I had met Meg a few times, and at one point she was at his house for a barbecue and spilled something all over her pants. Jake asked me if I could loan her some sweats. I couldn't, because I was a size 8 and she was a size 18. Nothing wrong with that at all. But the point is, I realized he made those comments about my weight to try and get me to break up with him because he was a coward. Although when he had said those things to me about my weight, it was 1 a.m. I lived about 95 miles away and we had just hooked up, so I didn't know how he thought this would go. Even in hindsight, it perplexes me. Did he think I was going to break up with him and storm off into the night and drive for an hour and a half? Anyway, I emailed his roommates. It was the early 2000s. It's how you communicated anything you didn't want to say on the phone. I wanted to let them know we had broken up and that they were always lovely to me and thank them for being friends. They both admitted that they knew about Meg and were the ones that demanded Jake tell me or they would. That's when he broke up with me with a lame, you don't understand science excuse. One of his roommates, a super nice, super cute guy named George, offered to help me get a few things still at their house that he had collected for me. He suggested I come up for the weekend, we go out and drink and have a good time. All the things Jake didn't want to waste money on, and I said sure. So I went up and George let me into the house while Jake was gone. I took photos of all of his animals because while I might not be a PhD student, I paid attention and I knew he had an endangered species in his care. He wasn't breeding it, it was an unreleasable animal he had taken in from a rescue organization. There was paperwork he had to submit with a $25 fee and he refused to do it, saying he didn't want the government in his business. I took photos of that animal, all his breeding conditions, and a photo of an animal not allowed in this state, which was in a tank, right next to a window and visible from outside. I then went out for a night on the town with George. We stumbled in early around midnight, so Jake and Meg, who were watching TV, would see me in my dress, drunk, and George practically carrying me. I spent the night in George's room. He was a total gentleman, but made sure to leave the room and parade past them in his boxers a few times. When I went to leave the next morning, Jake said I didn't have to act like that in front of him, as I ate a donut slowly in my rumpled dress with messy hair while George stared at me and then planted a kiss on my head. Meg looked ashamed, not quite knowing where to look, and I said, "Have fun with my leftovers," and walked out. I wanted to think the petty, loud hookup and a few juvenile insults were my revenge. It was not. The next day I had my photos developed and I called the State Office of Fish and Wildlife. I reported the animals in the house, the potential overcrowding of breeding animals, and the 2 animals he shouldn't legally have at all in the state, and I asked them how to make a report. Turns out Jake wasn't well liked by his peers in his program or by his roommates, but I was. George had suggested that he and their other roommate could submit complaints to the university that my ex was hooking up with one of his students and showing her favoritism. The night we were out at the bars, we made sure to tell the story to anyone who would listen. They made sure that all the women in his classes knew he was hooking up with Meg. It wasn't a large program, so people knew fast he had cheated and was now dating his student. George and the other roommate made sure people knew they had put in complaints, sick of Jake's entitled BS. With my full statement made and photos sent to the state wildlife officials, I called my friend Mary, Jake's advisor's wife. She knew about the breakup and lame reason, and I let her know that he admitted that he was hooking up with Meg. I had been emailing with him and he admitted to it in writing, so I sent that to Mary. To say she was not happy about that was an understatement. She said she made sure it would be investigated and told her husband, Jake's direct advisor, while I was on the phone with her. Speaking of investigations, a few weeks later, George called me, giddy, to say state and wildlife officials were there, confiscating animals. He told me he would be happy to tell them whatever they needed to know. Meg was there when it happened and told the officials, as far as she knew, all the animals belonged to her boyfriend Jake and that they were all legal. That put George and the other roommate in the clear. One animal was kept in the backyard, so it was implied to Jake that a neighbor reported it. While they were there to investigate, they knew to look in the back window to see the far more problematic, illegal to have in the state under nearly any circumstances animal. Since George was on the lease, he was able to let them in to investigate in the house. The animals were all in the communal areas, and the officer stayed there for a few hours and returned with a warrant to take all of the animals and enter Jake's room to investigate. George and the other roommate let them into their rooms with no issues and were quickly cleared. Meg apparently couldn't get a hold of Jake and eventually drove to the university to find him. Remember, no cell phones yet. It was a good day. The only animals they left were some guppies in a fish tank. Now, PhD students need grant money to do research, and a large part of animal studies funding comes from the federal government. Jake had just gotten an EPA grant right around when he broke up with me, so I called the EPA and asked how I would report that a person with a federal grant was being investigated for illegally harboring endangered animals. Long story short, he lost his EPA grant and had to make restitution on what he had already used, close to $30,000. He would never be able to get another federal grant. He avoided jail time on the state charges since all the animals were in good health, but lost all of his breeding animals, worth thousands of dollars, since they were collected for safekeeping during the investigation when the 2 illegal animals were taken. In the end, he owed a $15,000 fine, and 2 animals went to a nearby nature center. For years, I would stop by if I was in the area to visit them. The university revoked his scholarship and fired him from teaching for having his relationship. He somehow escaped being expelled, but it always shocked me that he never tried to hide the relationship with Meg and was so stupidly self-assured he didn't even wait the 4 weeks until she would have been done with his class to start publicly dating her. By the university rules, he would have been cleared to date her. It never fails to make me laugh. After a few months, I emailed his sisters and I told them that I missed them because Jake broke up with me after insulting my looks, cheating on me, and I felt weird contacting them. The girls told me that he told them that I broke up with him because of the distance. I forwarded them emails that Jake wrote after the breakup, talking about how he fell for Meg and he was sorry about it, but it was true. I couldn't keep up with him academically, and it made him attracted to Meg. Jake managed to convince his dad to pay for 1 more year of school so he could get a master's instead of a PhD, and while I stayed in contact with his sisters and brother via email and then social media, I largely let it all go. I got even, made some friends. Mary became like an auntie to me, and I went on with life. I went on to get a master's degree myself, and my specialty? Helping scientists and doctors communicate their work to lay people.
You know, us dummies who can't remember all the scientific names. I swear it happened by accident, not design, but I love it and I work with everyone from small-town doctors and nurses to pharmaceutical companies to museums, etc. I travel a lot and I get to learn a lot of cool things about our planet and how things work. I knew through his siblings that Jake and Meg got married and had 2 kids. Meg dropped out of the sciences and became an accountant. Jake went back to breeding animals. Every once in a while, his sisters or brother would tell me something over lunch or via text, but we had our own relationships that exist outside of him. Apparently, when I sent a wedding gift for one of his sisters, he loudly complained at a co-ed bridal shower that all of his siblings were still my friends and didn't make an effort to embrace his now wife, Meg. Apparently, the sister just laughed and said, "I don't make it a habit to be friends with homewreckers." This is how Jake's parents found out that their relationship started and ours ended, 10 years later after we broke up. Jake never found out I was behind reporting him to the state, and in the end, I didn't lie about a single thing, except maybe exaggerating a drunken makeout session with George, who is now a successful and tenured professor with a lovely wife and daughters. Fast forward about 20 years to a few weeks ago. I was at a university giving a lecture to a room of 250 undergrad and grad students. In the end, I was mingling with a student afterwards, and I hear a voice say, "Hey OP, long time no see," and I realized it's Jake, and I didn't change the expression on my face at all. I was completely shocked, and my instinct was to play dumb. So I said, "Help me out, have we met at another workshop or a lecture?" He looked incredulous and said, "It's me, Jake," and I said, "I can't place you, but I would love to figure it out." Finally, I gasped and said, "Oh my goodness, Jake, I guess I blocked you out," and said, "Well, lovely to see you," and moved on quickly when he tried to reach out and hug me. I was happy to leave it there, with the satisfaction of him seeing me as a guest lecturer in a science department of a major university when he was just in the audience. The department chair and faculty who invited me to speak took me out to dinner, and while there, one of them said, "So, you know Jake?" I said I did from over 20 years ago, being vague about how. She went on to tell me he had been there for an interview for a teaching position and had spent a few days there observing, and they were likely going to hire him. I couldn't control it. I scoffed. When they all looked at me, I said, "I'm sorry, I'm just shocked he's teaching after what happened at the other university." When they asked what happened, I told them exactly what had happened with him and Meg, his student, and how he had to leave the program without a PhD because he couldn't afford to stay after losing a scholarship. The 3 people I was with all looked at each other like they knew they had a problem, and then said, "Wow, we'll have to look into that," and they changed the subject. My old friend Mary called me this weekend to say a friend at the university let her know someone had called during a background check about Jake, and they pulled his file, which included being fired, leaving the program with a lower degree and the complaint letters from over 20 years ago about his conduct. Mary's name had been on it with her husband listed as a faculty advisor, so she thought she'd like to know. As a bonus, it had a copy of his arrest record for the illegal animals. I guess his dad had paid a decent lawyer to get the record expunged after the charges were reduced, and he paid the fines so it doesn't show up on a standard background check. I don't think he's going to get that job. So I will return to my life, content that the universe comes through sometimes, especially if you give it a little nudge now and then. The best revenge is when you don't have to do anything wrong, you just have to help direct knowledge to the right places. If there's anything I can impart to anyone reading this, it's that if someone who is supposed to love you complains about your weight or looks, that is their problem to fix mentally, not yours. And maybe it's time to check out what they're doing behind your back or simply move on. Remember though, it's their flaw, not yours. If Jake hadn't been a coward and tried to make me break up with him and just ended things with me in a mature way, I might not have found out about Meg and turned his own wickedness back on himself. You're not going to get the praise you feel you're deserving of. Sorry, this was 20 years ago. You're clearly unhinged, and I advise you get some therapy. I never thought I would side with a cheating guy, but it's been 20 years, and the guy's living rent-free in her head. At this point, he seems to have 2 kids. I can't help but think that it's them she's affecting by damaging their father's work life. This reminds me, a girl shot me down in a bar back in 2007. I need to find out where she lives and kick over her garbage cans. That'll show her for having a boyfriend at the time. Definitely messed up his life. But nothing says not over him quite like staying friends with his family. Jake for sure dodged a huge bullet there. I hope he can have a good life. He has no chance with OP checking in with family and popping up to ruin things for him every few years. Am I the jerk for telling my parents that being better parents to their younger kids does not make up anything to me? My parents had me when they were still pretty young. They were both 21. They weren't really secure and didn't have a maternal or paternal instinct back then. Because of this, my dad's parents stepped up and they both would take care of me when my parents were busy with school or work or anything really. I was basically raised by my grandparents for 13 years, and when I was 13, it only stopped because my life got busier at the encouragement of my grandparents. I was in extracurriculars, paid for by my grandparents, and spending more time with friends and exploring the world. My grandparents taught me a lot of skills from cooking to cleaning to how to take care of myself. They did it because they were aware I might not be taken care of if something happened to them, and I was left with just my parents. For years, my parents resented me. I know it, they know it, and my grandparents know it. They showed it in smaller ways, complaining when I asked for their signature or when my grandparents told them they needed to show up at parent conferences at my school. They would grumble about me being sick and ask my grandparents to deal with it. Sometimes they would take me to an amusement park and get annoyed when they couldn't go on all the rides together because that meant leaving me alone. Sometimes my grandparents had plans and couldn't let me stay with them for a night, and my parents wanted to go out. Then they had more kids, who are 3 and 1 now, and they are way better parents to them. I'm not saying they're perfect because nobody is, but they are being parents to them. They deal with every tantrum without acting like they hate them, and they play with them, read bedtime stories, sing with them, fight over who stays home with the sick kid because both want to be there. They know their 3-year-old's favorite foods and music. They want these kids. It only came to my attention recently because my parents suddenly decided the 3 of us needed therapy, that they felt them being better parents to their younger kids meant I would forgive them and it would make it up to me for not being there for me, even though they still aren't. They talked about me being distant and not spending time with the family and how they don't know me. I told them of course they don't know me. They were never around me, and when they were, they wished I wasn't there. I told them they can't honestly expect that being better parents to their other kids would make it up to me. They mentioned something about siblings and how I speak like they're not. And I said, because my parents are dad's parents, not them, and the kids I live with have different parents to me and a very different life. I also reiterated that being better to them is good because no kid should go through what I did, but it doesn't make anything up to me. They told me it was spiteful to not take joy in my siblings having better, and they accused me of being stubborn and unforgiving. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. They didn't want you as their kid, and they pawned you off onto your grandparents, who thankfully stepped up to the plate. They told you it was spiteful to not take joy in your siblings having better? How is it spiteful to not take joy in watching your younger siblings actually have their parents engage with them instead of throwing them away? OP. My theory is that my parents assumed I would automatically have this really deep love for my siblings and would see them as that, siblings, and that it would bridge the gap between us without them making any effort toward me. I think they set up this idea, and when I didn't feel that way, they were like, OMG, how did this happen? He should be happy. Karen loses it over my dog's treats not being vegan. I needed to go get my dog's food at the pet store this morning. I brought my dog because she's been going to training since my state opened up, and it was a great opportunity to bring her there and get some distraction exposure. While I was there was a young lady, maybe early 20s, who was walking around and she saw my dog. I said hi when she looked down at my dog and asked if she could pet her. I said of course. Hallie is very friendly and she's great for socializing. She kneels down and starts petting her and telling her she is a good girl. I had a treat pouch and I asked if she would like to give Hallie a treat. She said she would love to. So I gave her a few, and she asked if Hallie knew any tricks. She did down, sit, and paw, and took the treats gently. After a minute or so, the lady looked at her hand and asked what kind of treats they were, and I told her that they were beef liver. She backed up away from us, and if I could see her entire face, I'm sure her jaw would have dropped. She said something like, "Why didn't you tell me what they were?" Very upset. I was shocked. I didn't think it mattered, so I said, "I'm so sorry. Are you allergic?" I thought maybe that was the issue. She said, "No, I'm vegan." She went on to say that I should have told her what they were before I offered them and that I was a disgusting person for not saying anything or thinking about another person. I was honestly too flabbergasted to even say anything else. She just walked away, holding her hand out away from her.
to, I'm assuming, the bathroom to wash her hand. I kind of feel like the jerk because I didn't say anything about the type of treat. But also, she's a dog, and most dogs are meat-based. I don't eat meat, but I understand that my dog needs to, so I regularly handle meat for her. It doesn't bother me much now. And at the same time, I also feel like if you don't want to handle animal products, maybe ask what kind of treats they are before you take them. But I still can't shake the feeling that I'm in the wrong because I didn't say anything, and I understand how she felt about handling the treats. Am I the jerk? Should I have said what type of treats they were before handing them to her? Well, what do you think? Should OP have told them what kind of treats they were before handing her any? Please let us know. Entitled Dad picks up shark and ruins the day for everyone. Hi, I work at an aquarium as an educator and see a lot of things. On this particular day, it wasn't too busy, but we're still dealing with everything going on, so a lot of things are closed at my aquarium. We're working on opening everything, but it's hard. I was working the shark touch station. Now these particular sharks are nocturnal in the wild and tend to take naps during the day. Side note, if you don't know, not all sharks have to swim to breathe. These sharks don't have to, so they're typically laying at the bottom of the tank for their naps. I like to explain that when people come up and see they're not moving. On this particular day, we were kind of busy, and the sharks were having their afternoon nap. A family came up and noted the sharks weren't moving. Me. Yeah, so they're asleep and that's totally normal. But if you have long enough arms, you can try to touch them. But keep in mind, the water is cold and they're at the bottom of the tank. The dad nods and reaches in the tank, poking the shark hard enough to wake it up and thus making it move to the other side of the tank. He looks at me, irritated. Entitled Dad. Now what? Me. Well, you can wait for them to wake up and come to you, or you can move to this section. It's a bit deeper, but there are a lot of sharks there to touch. He rolled his eyes and moved his family. At the news station, it was too deep for the kids to reach, and they were starting to throw a fit. When this happens, I like to offer them other things they can do, or other animals up ahead, and always say that they can come back to see if the sharks had moved. This guy was not having it. He started throwing a fit, saying it was unfair that the sharks were asleep while people were there wanting to touch them. I explain the normal stuff I say when people get upset, which only upsets him more. He then proceeded to reach down, grab a shark by the tail, and lift it out of the water. I was bewildered. I see people push the sharks and try to move them on a normal basis, but no one removes them from the water until today. I didn't know how to react. They don't train you for this. Nee. Sir, please put the shark down. They need to live in the water. Entitled Dad. My kids will touch this shark. I panic. Sharks and other animals can die from stress, and this shark was not having a great time. I quickly call my lead, and as he's rounding the corner, the man drops the shark, causing the other sharks to wake up and become agitated. The Entitled Dad takes off to the next exhibit with my lead not far behind. I call the animal care team and essentially close down the touch section until I get the okay to open it. It didn't open for the rest of the day, which caused a lot of angry parents the rest of the day, but that's for another day. I think my lead caught the Entitled Dad and kicked him out, but not without him demanding a refund for the lack of things open and the lack of fun they had. I don't know if he got it. He probably did. We're known for handing out refunds for the dumbest things. I was too busy focusing on the animals. The sharks ended up being fine, and we were able to open the station the next day. So, my note to everyone, please do not pick up the sharks at your local aquarium. Thanks. Update. I got in contact with the lead for that day and asked him what the consequences were. He said we hold a 2-strike policy and gave him a warning. He came in the next day, got into an argument about the mask policy with the executive manager at the aquarium, spit on the floor, and was then escorted out by police, more than likely charged and put on the ban list. And we did not give him a refund that day. Have you ever got to pet sharks? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know. I like the ones that feel sandpapery and the stingrays, yes. Karen expects me to babysit for free as the cool aunt. My sister and I have always been very different. Growing up, she was your stereotypical nerdy/geeky girl, very into sci-fi and fantasy, video games, etc. She bonded a lot with my parents over it because they are the same. I always felt kind of different from the others because I'm not very geeky. And while I did my best to fit in, Star Wars movies, Harry Potter, etc., I took my first opportunity to leave the area for school. I went to FIT and got a degree in fashion design. I always loved making my own clothes. To frame it one way, I made my prom dress from my own pattern, and my family smiled politely.
My sister threw together a Harry Potter costume and the picture is hanging on the walls. Well, sis had kids a while back. I sent polite gifts, including a quilt to be handed down. Sis received them warmly, but I found out she doesn't use the quilt because the room is Harry Potter themed. Due to what's going on right now, I ended up moving back closer to home into a condo I had been renting out. Tenants were not evicted or anything. Once sister found out, she got really excited and started making all kinds of plans. I was thrilled because I thought she wanted to spend more time with me. Except the plans were like, I take the kids to the zoo, I take them to the park, I take them for ice cream, the aquarium, etc. so sis can have some time to herself and relax, play video games, etc. I inquired about when she and I would spend time together, and she actually said, "It's not like we have anything in common we can do together." I was really hurt by this and declined her requests for me to basically babysit her kids. She asked me why, and didn't I want to be the cool aunt? And this is where I think I'm the jerk. I said, "I don't know. It's not like I have anything in common with them that we can do together. Sounds like you want an unpaid babysitter." She was shocked and went stomping to mom and dad, who immediately took her side and told her that I should be thankful to spend time with the kids. I said, "Why? It's not like anyone in the family has ever made it a point to spend time with me doing something I'd enjoy." She told me that if I'd tried harder to be more like the rest of them instead of chasing popularity and doing my nails, maybe I would have more in common with them. I'm lost now because on one hand, I don't think I was wrong to decline being a free sitter for my sister. But maybe my mom is right and I've been a crappy member of the family because I couldn't just get into Star Wars and all that. Edit. I just wanted to chime in and say that Star Wars and Harry Potter aren't the only geeky/nerdy things they like. They were just the ones that popped into my head. I remember back when we were in high school, my sister laughed in my face because I didn't enjoy the Sabriel books, and she told me that they were too advanced for me to understand. She found me reading the California Diaries, offshoot of Babysitter's Club books, and laughed in my face again because she thought they were dumb. Edit 2. One thing I'm curious about is why are so many people telling me, first thing in their comments, that they're geeky and nerdy? Why do you think that makes things different? Well, what do you think? If you had siblings that never wanted to spend time with you, would you watch their kids for free? Please let us know. My kids are such angels. You should be the one paying me to watch them. I'm not allowed to buy here. I work in a private preschool. I wear a green badge on a lanyard, and for the time being, I usually wear scrubs to work that I can throw off when I get home. Anyway, today I had to swing by Small Fart on my way home to pick up some groceries, but mostly to visit the pharmacy and get my mother-in-law some insulin. It's summer and hot. Today I had chosen not to wear a shirt under my scrubs because of the heat, so I wasn't able to change like usual. Still, my crayon and rainbow patterned top and bright turquoise pants looked nothing like Small Fart's blue vest and khaki pants uniform, and I'm headed straight home after, so I thought no big deal. I hit the pharmacy first because they close earlier than the rest of the store and there's always a line. I'm up after an elderly gent and I'm just kind of people watching, going over my list in my mind. Suddenly, I feel a tug on my shirt. This is uncomfortable for two reasons. One, social distancing is still a thing, right? And two, did I mention it was hot? I'm sweaty as heck. I turn and see this octogenarian Karen poking her meaty finger at me. At least she had a mask on. "You're in line?" I look down at the floor where there is an actual line painted. Yes. She clicks somehow, like an insect. "That's great. You know you employees should let us paying customers go first. We have more important places to be." Me. "I don't work here, ma'am." Karen. "Don't you ma'am me? Stupid teenager." I'm pushing 40. I'm not in that much of a hurry, so I try to get her with kindness. Me. "I'm sorry, I really don't work here, but if you're in a hurry, you can go ahead of me." Karen. "You bet I can." She practically pushes me out of the way, and I scoot back to the next dot that's 6 feet away. The lady behind her, who is now behind me, gives me a "what can you do?" shrug. So I wait and she goes up to the pharmacist and immediately starts bad-mouthing me to the lady, who obviously doesn't give a hoot. She just glances up at me and apologizes to the lady for the wait. The Karen gets her stuff and starts to leave, but suddenly stops. I'm ready for another tirade, but it's my turn, so I kind of step around her. As I do, she starts walking again and leaves. I do what I came to do. The pharmacist doesn't even mention the incident, so neither do I, and then get my food and also leave. I don't know if she was pausing to maybe apologize to me,
or if she had more to say, or just wanted another look and realized she had been wrong. I guess dealing with toddlers all day has made me Karen-proof. She was pretty mild though. Am I the jerk for inviting my brother to my wedding, but not his wife? I'm engaged. My fiancée is overweight. She was when I met her. I've always found her irresistibly attractive. Not looking for commentary or unsolicited advice on this point. My fiancé and I sent out save the dates for the wedding. My brother got one. His wife very intentionally did not. He got married last year. His wife had all my siblings' significant others as bridesmaids, whether they were married or dating. Even my other brother's girlfriend, who he had only been with for a few months. I had been with my girlfriend for nearly 5 years at that point, and everyone knew it was a question of when, not if, we'd get married. She didn't ask my girlfriend to be a bridesmaid because she didn't want to be constrained to picking a bridesmaid's dress available in plus sizes and did not want to have my girlfriend in her wedding photos. I'm not speculating. That's not something I ever could have guessed. That's what she said, in her own words, when we arrived at the wedding to find everyone else's significant others were bridesmaids but her, and asked what was going on. I thought maybe it was a bridezilla moment, and she had realized how awful it was later. But it's been over a year, and while my brother has apologized again and again for ever having allowed that to happen, why he's invited, his wife never did at all, even when it's brought up in front of her. We've only seen them a couple times since the wedding, and my fiancé has tried to forgive and forget, but it's still uneasy between us because of the singular lens we now know she sees my fiancé through. My fiancé doesn't mind grinning and bearing for the occasional family event we have to attend, but I didn't feel like it would be right to make her spend her wedding day with someone who would ever treat her as less than human. We're having a very small wedding, 20 people and 12 our family. Having that woman there would taint the whole dynamic. That being said, the rest of the family is understandably upset. My family, my brother especially, feel like we're trying to make them choose sides. In my other brother's words, even if that wasn't your intention, it's the result. And that's a real jerk move none of us deserve. We didn't do anything to your fiancé. I definitely don't want to make anyone choose sides, and he's not wrong that they didn't cause the problem and don't deserve the fallout. But my wife also deserves a wedding day with only people who love and cherish her. Am I the jerk for not inviting my brother's wife? Well, what do you think? Should they invite his brother's wife to their wedding or not? Please let us know.
Sounds like his brother married a real Karen. Tell him he's in for a wild ride. Yeah.
Don't do extra? Okay. Stop working here? Sounds good. This was about 3 years ago. I was working in the bakery of a local high-end grocer. Think gourmet Whole Foods, and had been there for 3 years. What started as a college job for a semester turned out to be a longer-term thing. I loved the work, the customers, and my coworkers. That is until the final month there. I was online for a promotion to assistant manager. In my time there, I had been passed over for different promotions for people that were more favorable for the company image. When the position came up, I was the only person across the company that applied. I thought I was a shoo-in and had been led to believe that it was as good as mine. The old assistant manager was transferring to a higher position and took extra time to train me before leaving. Weeks passed and I heard no news. No one in my department was getting an answer for when I'd be given the step up. That was until someone elsewhere asked us when the new assistant manager was transferring in from another store. Turned out that my boss's boss, we'll call him Greg, decided that I was a terrible fit and went above her to push someone into the role, someone that didn't want it and hadn't been trained for it. I complained to someone higher up, saying I should have at least been told that the decision was reversed. No word came and the new assistant manager started. It only took a couple days to realize that she had barely worked in the bakery and had not been trained for her position. She also seemed to target me, assuming that I didn't know how to do the most basic things we did. I later found out that Greg told her I was a problem employee and needed to be watched very closely and given guidance. Out of the blue, our manager was given the boot and replaced. She had no warning, and suddenly someone from a completely different store and department was in her position. This person had no clue how to do the job, and with the training that the old assistant manager gave me, I overtook most of the day-to-day tasks. Greg came in one day and threw a fit that I was doing inventory. He said that I had no place acting like I was in charge and doing jobs that weren't meant for people like me. Fine. Inventory? Not getting done. Dating and tossing old product? Not my problem now. Helping customers with issues and complaints? Let me grab the manager instead. Making sure things are filed and ordered when needed? No thanks. I started doing the bare minimum, took all of my breaks,
Clocked in exactly when my shift was scheduled and left exactly when it ended, no matter what I was doing. They didn't want me to go outside my station, then I wouldn't. Easy days for me. Suddenly, issues popped up left and right, and our new manager was scrambling to figure things out. I told them nothing since it wasn't my place to teach them how to do their jobs. This all came to an end when I was called into a meeting with a store manager. We'll call him Rob. Rob: Greg has told me that you've had a lot of issues lately. Me: I bet he has. I'm just doing my job now. He told me to. Rob: Well, he told your manager to stop scheduling you after today. He wanted me to tell you. Me: Are you firing me? Rob: No. Greg said that you won't be scheduled, but you may be used as an emergency call-in during the holidays. Me: I'm not working, but I'm not fired? This is BS. Rob: I agree, but he's above me when it comes to what happens in your department. Me: All right, I'll finish today, but after that, I'm done. This is some stupid work politics, and I'm not playing this game with him. I kept my word and finished my shift without complaint. As soon as the end hit, I walked away and clocked out. That's when I told my coworkers what had happened during that meeting. I bid them farewell and walked out. The next morning, I was woken up before sunrise by a call from Greg. He said that almost everyone in our department had quit overnight and he needed me in to open. I reminded him that he didn't want me there, so I quit. He demanded I return and help him train a new team, so I did what anyone would do. I told him to do it himself, go forget himself, and hung up. Last I heard from a few friends that are still with the company, our department didn't really recover all the way, and people still talk about how we all left together one day. If you see this and recognize the story, forget you, Greg. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my husband's best friend move in with us and threatening to leave if he does? My husband has a childhood friend who we'll call Eric. Their parents are friends, so they've grown up together and consider each other brothers since they're both the only sons in their respective families. I've never been overly fond of Eric, but I've never actually disliked him until now. It turns out Eric has been cheating on his wife, Amy, the mother of his 2 small kids, with a coworker. Amy kicked him out, and now he needs a place to stay because he doesn't want anyone in his family to find out what he did, and none of his other friends have room for him. When my husband asked if he could let him stay, I flat out refused. I'm currently 7 months pregnant, and throughout my pregnancy, Amy has been a massive support. There is no way I'm going to let the man who broke her heart stay with me so he can keep his dirty little secret. My husband is upset because he claims me and Amy were never that good of friends to begin with, which is true until my pregnancy, and that he can't refuse his brother when what he did wasn't even that bad. After a lot of arguing, he says he's going to move him in tomorrow whether I agree or not because this is his house. I'm ashamed to admit I lost it. I told him if he even dares to bring him, I'll move out the same day, and that it says a lot about him that he's willing to side with a cheater. My husband is now angry at me because I'm threatening to take his baby and hasn't spoken to me since. I believe he's still planning to let Eric stay. Before this, we never really fought, and the silent treatment is starting to make me feel like a real jerk. Some of my friends say I'm the jerk because I shouldn't get involved in Eric and Amy's marital problems, but others agree it would be crappy to help him after what he's done. I honestly don't know if I overstepped. I don't want to move out. It was something I said in the heat of the moment, but I feel like I'll have to if Eric moves in now. Am I the jerk for threatening to leave the house if he moves in? And if he does move in, do I follow through? Update. So I've spoken to Amy again, and she pretty much confirmed that my husband was covering for Eric. This also isn't his first affair, and the reason he doesn't want anyone to know is because his family is essentially threatened to disown him if he did it again. Amy has tried to contact the mistress' husband, but hasn't been able to find much info about her or her husband. She's planning to tell her in-laws, but hasn't yet because they convinced her the last time to give him a second chance, and she doesn't want anyone influencing her decision again. My husband continued to ice me out until I started experiencing some cramps, and now he's acting like a doting husband again. Neither of us has brought up Eric/the argument again, but I'm still pretty upset with him. I'll update again if anything else happens. Update 2. Well, my mother-in-law came over to drop off some baby stuff. She's been doing this regularly. She noticed something was off between me and husband and asked us if something had happened. Husband fed her some BS story about how I was just worried about the birth and being parents. I think my mother-in-law could tell I was getting upset again because she told husband to go into the other room so we could talk. I ended up telling her everything, and she was furious with husband. She spent a long time lecturing him about how this isn't how you treat your pregnant spouse and how he needs to stop always trying to solve Eric's problems for him, especially not at the expense of his own marriage. She then asked me to stay the night around her place, so that's where I am right now.
My husband was pretty angry I involved his mother in our problems, but has also been calling and texting me apologies since. I haven't responded yet. Well, what do you think? Do you think her husband should have Eric come stay with them, or no? Please let us know. I say she kick him out, and him and Eric can go get a motel together. Maybe Motel 6. They leave the lights on for you. Dad flips out on me like a total Karen. I've been living on my own for almost 9 months, and have been enjoying the freedom away from my parents, but I still like to come and stay if my parents ask. With lockdown restrictions being eased in the UK, my dad asked me if I wanted to stay at his for a few days as he needed help with some DIY and decorating. I naturally said yes, and I came down at the start of the week. The minute I got there, it was straight down to business painting the living room. I didn't mind it, but with it being the summer, we had the windows and back door open all the time. I have pretty awful hay fever, and it makes my nose run incessantly, so I began to sniff quite a lot, even if I blew my nose. My dad went ballistic and demanded that I stop sniffing every second, as he found it irritating. I apologized, but attempted to explain that I couldn't stop sniffing, and the direct way to combat it would be to shut the windows and use the AC for a bit. My father, being the cheapskate he is, refused to put the AC on and instead demanded that I stop sniffing because I was allegedly doing it to annoy him. I dismissed the idea, and he then sulked for the rest of the day. By the 5th day of my sniffly stay, he produced a mason jar with the label Sniff Jar and stated that I had to put money in every time I sniffed, with increasing amounts every time. 1 sniff equals 1 pound, 2 sniffs is 2 pounds, and so on. I refused point blank to agree, and he erupted in anger, claiming that it had been a household rule that since I was a kid. It hadn't, and my parents divorced in my teens, with no mention of this rule in either house, and that I was being disrespectful to him. I tried to discuss it with him reasonably, but he refused to listen and just resorted to talking louder than me. I was sick of the entire argument, so I gave him a piece of my mind, packed up my stuff, and went back to my place. I haven't spoken to him since, and feel like I acted as best I could in response to something that just seemed very outlandish. Edit. I've been made aware that I have used AC incorrectly. I use the term to generally refer to any form of air cooling and conditioning, when in fact it's for a specific kind. In this context, I'm referring to a number of tower fans that my dad keeps around the house but refuses to use. Am I the jerk for not wanting to be a stepmom? A lot of people are upset with me about this. So my, for clarification, at the time boyfriend, but now an ex-boyfriend, said that an old fling called him and said she's pregnant and the baby is his. Yeah, I freaked out. About a lot of stuff. He was like, "Why can't you be excited? You love me. We'll make it work." I was honestly like, "No, sorry, I can't do that. I don't want to sign up for a future of being a stepmom, and I'm just not into this. I'm sorry." People have since told me that I was being immature. If you love someone, you love all of them, and you don't leave them if you find out that they're having a baby. You should be happy for them, blah blah blah. Okay, but I don't want to be a stepmom. I'm just not dating someone with kids. I don't like kids, and I don't want any in the future. And that should be okay, right? I'm also young, and I don't want to live that life. I've had multiple people, including his parents, his cousins, etc., all of who I know really well, call me a selfish brat for not being cool with it. I don't get it. His cousin sent me this. "Honestly, you had the wrong reaction. You shouldn't have said you weren't happy about it and left. If you really love your partner, you would love their kid, no matter the circumstances. Also, how rude of you to say that you didn't sign up to be a stepmom. That's crazy to me that you would even say that. So you don't accept his kid just because it would have been with another woman? Babies are innocent no matter what. Grow up." What do you guys think? Who is right here? Some relevant information I didn't add before because I wrote this in a rush. We only dated for 8 months, but had been close friends for 4 years before. So no, he didn't cheat on me. No worries there. The girl was clearly very, very far along when she finally got the guts to tell him. Also, we are broken up. It wasn't even a choice. I don't want kids, so it had to be done. Thanks for all the replies. I thought I was the crazy one since a lot of people were telling me I should have stayed. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have stayed with him or left? Please let us know. Karen complains about prices and ruins a great deal for herself. This story took place over the course of a few weeks. Bear with me as I recall the details. I work at a thrift shop. Most items are priced based on quality and condition. However, we do have set prices for some items. One such item is Monster High dolls. We get them pretty often, so the general rule is that each doll goes out for $5. If it's in bad shape or missing bits, it's $4, and if it's clothed with accessories, it's $6. It's always been this way,
and this is a standard across all of our locations. I've had customers ask why these dolls are more expensive than our Barbies or other dolls out there, and I usually explain that Monster High dolls offer articulated joints and are popular for customizing and sculpting off of. When we get into a conversation about it, usually the customer will understand why the dolls are on the pricier side. Well, not this lady. This lady brought up about 10 dolls to the register and immediately asked my cashier for a manager, myself. She asks why the dolls are expensive. I explain why and assume she'll understand. But no. She instead insists that the other stores sell these dolls for $3, and she even found one in the package with all these extra accessories for only $8. I told her that unfortunately, without some proof, I wouldn't be able to honor such a reduced price, but did offer her $5 for a couple of her $6 picks due to minor imperfections. That was 2 or so weeks ago, and I assumed that that was the end of it. But I was wrong. This lady came back about a week ago and told me she was so glad she could catch me again because she has something to show me. I got a little excited because I thought she was going to show me her collection, or a doll she had customized. She brought all my expectations down when I saw she was showing me pictures of Monster High dolls from other locations. Sure enough, priced at $3 across the board. I was so surprised, I just stared. She put on a smug face and told me, "See? Your dolls are maybe just a little overpriced." And with how snotty her voice was, it took everything in me to be civil when I told her that I would speak to the store manager to clarify whether our prices were right or the other location's prices. She walked away thinking she had won, and I walked away kind of defeated. The next day when I saw the store manager was in, I asked him if we had a set price for Monster High dolls. He told me yes, and together we reviewed the pricing standard for dolls. We even went out onto the sales floor to make sure we really were on track with our pricing. Seeing as we have never had to recycle a single Monster High doll for not selling, we decided we did not need to lower the prices. Now, just today, the store manager approached me when I started my shift, grinning ear to ear. He had a story to tell me. Apparently, this lady had gone to the other locations within our city and complained and moaned about our horribly overpriced dolls to the cashier, who brought the manager over to share the conversation. She told them they should talk to that other store and see about lowering our prices a notch. And so the manager did what any good manager ought to do. She followed up and reviewed the pricing standard for these toys and dolls. To her horror, she saw that their store was in the wrong. They were practically giving these dolls away, and the pricing standard wasn't even posted at the tables, so the pricers had no idea they were pricing things incorrectly. She emailed our store manager immediately with her findings and asked us for our thoughts. My store manager told her that he and his team had encountered the lady as well and recommended reviewing the standards with her team so that they could price correctly. Then he CC'd the email to the district manager, who later in the night rolled out an email about following pricing standards more thoroughly across all departments to prevent customers like her from trying to undermine us like that again. So basically, this lady completely destroyed a really good deal for herself by raising a stink about the overpriced dolls at the other store. She's gonna be in for a nasty surprise when she next visits and finds all the dolls are appropriately priced. Religious Karen loses it over a dinosaur quilt. My sister and I weren't raised religious. She went off to uni at 18 and became a Christian when she started dating another Christian. Basically, the point is she doesn't believe anymore that dinosaurs exist. She's now married to a man who isn't religious, which is a sore point for her that he won't convert. I have a niece who's 9 and a nephew who's 6. A couple of weeks ago, while watching them, my nephew mentioned his quilt I made him was getting too short, so I told them both to go into my craft room and pick some fabrics they each want on a quilt. I could easily open a fabric shop with all of the fabric I have, so they had a rare time picking out their fabrics. My niece went for some space/galaxy themed, and my nephew picked out some dinosaur fabrics. I thought nothing of it and got to work. Today, I went over with their quilts, excited to see their reaction. They were so happy until my sister noticed my nephew's quilt and asked, "What the heck?" I was confused, and she quickly went on a rant about her knowing dinosaurs don't exist, and how dare I try brainwashing her kid like that. I told her he picked out the fabric himself. I genuinely didn't make the connection, and I would let him pick more fabric for a different quilt. By this point, my nephew is crying, saying he doesn't want a different quilt, so my sister called my brother-in-law, telling him to set me straight. He basically shrugged and asked what the big deal was. It's only fabric. Their son likes the fabric. It's his son too, and he believes in dinosaurs, so he should get a say on the quilt too if it's such a big deal. My parents are now involved, and despite not being religious, they're upset at me for what I've done. No one but my brother-in-law believes it was a genuine mistake or oversight, and they think I've set out to mock my sister's beliefs. I honestly didn't think I'd have to vet my nephew's fabric choices with my sister, as all the fabric they had access to was kid-friendly prints. The stuff with swearing, etc. is kept elsewhere, as they like going into my craft room. Edit. Thank you, good people of Reddit, for your comments and advice. If there's any more comments tomorrow, I'll try replying to them. I'm off to sleep now, and here's hoping I don't dream of dinosaurs. Night-night. Well, what do you think? Was it okay for OP to make the dinosaur quilt, or should she have checked with her sister first? Please let us know. Of course it wasn't okay. I would have just burned the thing. Karen. The food was horrible. Me. But you ate it all? I was remembering some crazy stories about my time as a waitress when I was working at Saltgrass Steakhouse and thought I'd share. Maybe share some more stories about the choosing beggars you will always encounter in the restaurant business, but I like this one particularly for how my awesome boss handled it all. We've got entitled woman, we've got me, and we've got the manager. This was a few years ago, and I had been at this particular restaurant for a little over a year at this point. I never had a wrong order and knew the menu like the back of my hand, and I really loved working there since it was more pricey than some places, so we tended to attract better tippers. It was close to the end of my shift as a couple walked in. My replacement wasn't there yet, so I thought, why not? One last table for the day. I greeted them politely, and they ordered some smothered cheese fries and some soda, and later got some double pork chops and chicken fried steak. I remember because it was just a good day. I checked on them periodically, making sure their drinks were always full, or if they needed anything else, made sure their food was okay, to which they replied that it was great. I noticed that they had cleaned their plates, not one single thing left on them, and as I was taking them away, I asked if they wanted some dessert. They said no, so I proceeded to drop off their check, and all of a sudden, their attitude went sour at this point. Karen. I want to see your manager. Me. Okay, but can I ask what the problem is? I might be able to help. Usually I could help if there was any problem, although I couldn't think of what it was. Karen. This was the worst food I have ever eaten. I'm not paying for this. I want it for free. She was actually pretty loud, and I was grateful the restaurant wasn't busy because I hated it when customers made a scene and disturbed the other diners. Me. Okay, I'll get my manager then. I purposely walked by the podium and tell the hostess to not let these people D&D, which in our store meant dine-and-dash, just funny restaurant language for us. Thankfully, my manager got out of her office in a flash, knowing that leaving while they weren't being watched was probably what they were waiting for, and sure enough, our great host was blocking them from leaving at that exact moment. Manager. Excuse me, folks, but you haven't paid your bill. You need to pay before leaving, she said, going to the doors as well. She had stopped people from just walking out on the check many times before, so this was nothing new to her at all. Karen. But the food was horrible. You expect us to pay for horrible food and service? She looked at me when she said that, obviously lying, but there was no point in defending myself. My manager knew I was good at my job, and she has heard it all before. Manager. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. If I may ask though, if it was so horrible, why did you eat it all? Once you finish your meal, there's nothing I can do to fix it. And even if it was horrible, we have a no comp. Comping a meal is what we do to give it for free. Policy. So regardless, you will be paying your bill, she said sternly. Our food was expensive. They had spent a little under $100, so there was no way she was letting them walk out on us. Karen. You can't make us pay for bad food. And we are in a hurry, which is why we ate it all, because we didn't have time for you to make it better. The food here is always terrible anyway, she said, making a motion to leave. But my manager didn't even flinch, which seemed to surprise the lady, as if people just magically moved out of her way all the time. Manager. Ma'am, I can call the police and have you arrested for theft. Just because you didn't like it doesn't matter. You ate it regardless, and now you need to pay for it. Now, do I need to call the police, who are literally 2 minutes away? You could honestly see the police station from out of the restaurant windows. Or will you be paying your bill? Karen.
But it's not stealing. It's only food after all. She began to yell again and whine about it. I will never understand people who think that eating and not paying is not stealing. Just because you consume the product doesn't mean it's not stealing. If you took food from a supermarket, it's considered stealing, and this is basically the same thing. Karen, fine, but we will never eat here again. I couldn't help but stifle a little laugh at that point. Even if she heard me, I didn't care, because I already knew I wasn't getting a tip. After all, they already tried to make a run for it without giving me anything for it, so why would they bother now? My manager led them to the register, and they paid, leaving in a huff. I sighed and began to clear the table and noticed my manager had a little smirk on her face as she handed me the receipt. Manager, enjoy your 20% gratuity I added to their bill, she said with a smile walking off. That definitely made my day. After all, they had signed the bill because they paid with their card, so even if they contested it later, we have proof they approved it. Regardless, my manager did this so I wouldn't be stiffed from an entitled table. No one leaves our restaurant without paying. We will honestly bend over backward to make you happy, but you will be paying in the end. Speaking of Saltgrass Steakhouse, what's your favorite restaurant of all time? Please let us know. I do love me some Chipotle, even though it does tend to give me the Hershey squirts. Entitled mother calls me, my boss, and texts me at work saying it's an emergency. It wasn't. So my mother, who's 51, is an entitled mom to the max. Toxic family members? No problem, just forgive them. Constantly bugged staff when I, 24 female, was younger and would call the school whenever she got the chance to complain about something. Finally, she needs everything to go her way. Also, constantly making me 20 minutes late to field trips and demanded they wait because she had to get ready. At my sister's wedding, she said she would help at 11 a.m. to set up. Didn't get there until 5. Gift opening at 10:30. She got mad when we started without her. So yesterday, she actually called my work number 4 times. My boss, I don't know how she even got her number, as she doesn't even know where I work, 2 times, and finally sent me a text message asking if I ever wanted a relationship with her. To which I responded with the following: Mom, I would love a relationship with you. However, some things have to change. I can't be answering these questions when you know I'm at work. You can't continue to gaslight me because I want a relationship with my father. My dad is my dad, and just because he left you as a wife does not mean he left me as his daughter, like you made me believe when I was younger, which was completely wrong of you to take your emotions and to put them on me. I got to read all the paperwork. I know both sides. Divorce of parents with kids are never one-sided. You can have a relationship with me when I hear an apology for the things ex-stepdad put our family through. All of it. The teasing and the bullying has to stop. That means all of it. You do not get to play the sympathy card if I react badly to years of that crap from my siblings that you also contributed to. Stepdad, and yes, from you as well. That means no more making fun of me, my past, or my current partner, including making fun of our relationship. None. You need to seek professional help for your narcissistic tendencies. I am under no obligation to keep my hair blonde, give you grandkids, or to not donate my eggs, get a tattoo that I had no say in, or to visit you. You have no right to make me feel bad when I do things and you don't like them. I don't want to visit a toxic household when I know what will happen, so until you get professional help for your past, I will see you on major holidays and special occasions. And now I finally have peace and quiet. Am I the jerk for calling my grandma a failed gold digger? My grandma, who's 64, is a narcissist, has always hated my dad. Before my mom met him, she dated a doctor who treated her like garbage. But to my grandma, he was Mr. Perfect because he had gobs of money. My dad is a county sheriff, so even though he supports our family just fine and my mom hasn't had to work in over 20 years, my grandma still insists on hating him because our house doesn't have a pool or a tennis court like my mom's ex. My grandma is still friends with his family. She also treats my sister like trash because she was my parents' firstborn, and in an attempt to make peace, my mom insisted on naming me after her, resulting in me being my grandma's favorite, even though I personally can't stand her and go by a shortened version of the name. I've also been sharing my gifts from her with my sister since middle school. She'd literally send me $250 gift cards for Christmas, while my sister will get a sweater from Walmart. The most expensive gift she ever got from her was a leather purse, right after my sister went vegan. Anyway, restrictions have relaxed a lot in my state, and we could only use what's been going on as an excuse so many times before my mom insisted on inviting her for dinner. We weren't even halfway through our salads when my grandma asks how paying off my student loans are going. I proudly tell her I should be debt-free by next summer,
And my grandma starts talking about how she wishes we had had college funds, but my mom didn't want to marry up. My dad has the patience of a saint, but me not so much. I put my fork down and said, maybe it's because she saw the example you set as a failed gold digger and decided she didn't want to be miserable like you. For context, my grandma has been married 4 times, each time for money, and all of them either blew all their money or went to jail, and then she left them because they went broke. My grandma yelled at me and left. My mom cried, and my dad told me he appreciates me defending him, but he doesn't want me to start crap on his behalf. I understand his point, but I also know he feels a lot of guilt for not being able to pay for our college, which is why he won't charge us rent and instead insists we live with him so we can pay off our debts faster. So I know that even though he acts like her comments don't bother him, they absolutely do. My mom is still moping because she's all, family this, family that. My sister called me a trooper, and my dad still thinks I shouldn't have said anything because he hates seeing my mom upset. So what do you guys think? Am I the jerk? I'm just tired of her constantly insulting my dad when he works his butt off to give us a good life. But then again, I do have a tendency to be a daddy's girl, so maybe I'm just biased. Edit. I really appreciate all the feedback, guys. Just to clarify, I want to say my mom has talked to my grandma about her comments and favoritism several times in the past. The problem is, she'll knock it off for a little bit, then circle right back to her normal narcissistic self. It's a never-ending cycle of jerkery with this old lady. Anyway, I suggested therapy to my mom to deal with how her past has affected her, and she told me she'll think about it. So that's progress. Again, thanks for the feedback, guys. Stay judgy. Well, what do you think? Was OP too harsh on Grandma, or did Granny get exactly what she deserved? Please let us know. I like the grandma. We should really hang out sometime. Manager from another post begs me to return after firing me. If anyone saw my post on r/I don't work here lady, this is the same Walmart assistant manager. A little setup. Between my previous post and this one, I was fired for working. I had transferred to apparel, which didn't have any cameras due to the dressing rooms in the area, so that came down to my word versus his. Sadly, corporate didn't know our history, so they didn't side with me in my appeal. But basically, I was fired for not working, despite the fact that I was keeping the department afloat single-handedly. Everyone else there were elderly ladies who couldn't keep up with the fast pace required. Anyhow, about a month after I was fired, I was doing some shopping. I hate Walmart, but in my town, there's some things you can't buy elsewhere. So I'm browsing the clothing section, admiring the sudden redesign of having clothes scattered all over the place. I step over a few shirts, not my job anymore. I'll not do a job I was fired from unless I'm being paid, and continue meandering. Assistant manager sees me and runs up to me. Assistant manager. Hey, can we get you back? I'll hire you right here, right now. I'll push the appeal through. We need you back. I thought you were lazy, but this place has gone to heck. Me. It's tempting, but I do have another job already. Sorry, but I can't just bolt on a job that needs me. Besides, you fired me. Assistant manager. All right, I'm sorry. If you'd be willing to put in some work, I'll push it through with HR to get you paid. It's our policy to pay all workers. Me. I know the policy, but you can't afford my freelancer rates, and your policy is paid at standard starting wages. At this, I turned and walked away, stepping over a few other garments someone threw on the floor. I felt bad, I really did. My OCD really took a hit there. But I don't make a habit of helping people who do me over. Since then, the manager has been fired for harassing other employees. I still have contacts there in upper management. Parents who think it's okay to let your kid pet guide dogs. What the heck? This is not a post about a particular instance per se, but of the general experience I get as a blind person. I get people who pet my guide dog, which is a huge no-no. Never pet a service dog, especially a guide dog. Most often, it's just people who don't know you're not supposed to do that. When I politely tell them not to do it, they apologize and leave. Often, I have people ignore me and still pet them, at which point I will usually command my dog to take me out of the situation. Less often, people will actually confront me about it, accusing me of being cruel for not allowing my dog pets. Of this latter group, the vast majority of the time, it's entitled parents with their spawn. I don't know why, but I would say at least once a week, I will experience a kid petting my dog, me telling them no, and the parent making a fuss about it, telling me that it's mean to their kid not to let them touch my dog. I once had a parent try to get me kicked out of somewhere for having a fake service dog. During some of these interactions, I've had many simply tell their kids to keep petting even after I've told them no. Many have full-on started screaming and shouting at me, and as a small blind girl, this is quite scary.
One sticks out in my mind where I was in a supermarket and more than one kid, two I think, screamed, "Doggy!" and ran over to him. After my normal, "Hey guys, please don't touch him, he's a guide dog," etc. I hear 2 feet from my right ear, a female shouting at me about having my dog indoors. After saying I was a blind person and he was my guide dog, she then accused me of pretending to be blind. Her reasoning? "Your eyes are perfectly normal." Besides the fact that this doesn't change the fact I was or was not blind, it's also something I hear on an almost daily basis. After some back and forth, during which she told her kids to keep petting him, she actually took the leash off me. This is why this particular interaction is so ingrained in my memory, and you have to understand how absolutely terrifying that is. That's like if someone came along and blinded you. I was utterly helpless. I started screaming, panicking, and crying in the middle of this place, and eventually drew the attention of staff, who rather unhelpfully dealt with the situation. The point of this post, simply just to express my built-up rage over the years at the number of entitled parents who believe that their kids' rights to touch a cute animal overrides the safety of disabled individuals. I've had so many bad interactions with people of all types and stories galore, but entitled parents remain in my moments of infamy, because not only are they being absolute goblins, but they're teaching their kids to be goblins too. If you're someone with a service animal who has any similar experiences, please let us vent together. If you're someone who pets, talks to, or in any way interacts with service animals with their vests on, stop doing that. And to parents who let their kids do this, why are you such a jerk? Got my supervisor fired after she retaliated against me and fired me. I started working for an insurance company in January of this year. I even moved to the opposite side of the country to do so. While I was in office, everything was great. I was hitting my metrics and exceeding goals monthly. Then 2020 hit, and we were all sent home to work remotely. That's when things went downhill. In June, my aunt passed away, so I took time off for the virtual memorial. In July, my wife lost her best friend suddenly and was in the thralls of grief, so I used paid time off during this time to cover. The first Sunday of July, I had done a shift trade with a fellow associate, but I logged in anyway just to make sure it was accepted. I checked my schedule, and the coding for the day was confusing, so I sent my supervisor a screenshot and asked for clarification. It was determined by my supervisor that I was off that day. This is important for later. Throughout the month, I noticed that my supervisor was going into my time card and changing my hours worked from over 2 months ago, which caused me to, allegedly, use PTO that I didn't have, even though the system and my paycheck stated otherwise. Because of her hijacking my time cards regularly, I received 8 attendance occurrences in 1 meeting. We are allowed 12. Now remember that day in July where my supervisor determined I was off? Well, 1st of August hit, and she comes back and tells me that I in fact was not off that day, and "Now that I'm looking at the screenshot, you needed to work." She and I went back and forth on what the point of sending information if she wasn't even going to look at it. I even reached out to her supervisor and HR, but ultimately I was told that this would be the 9th occurrence. After my supervisor got wind that I went above her head, she got mad. She wouldn't recognize my accomplishments, but would do so for the rest of the team. She would send me emails that were confusing and started micromanaging everything I did. Any small mistake would result in immediate disciplinary action, even something as small as going over by 1 minute on my break. I'm on the spectrum, and it was taking a toll on my mental health. I would come into work feeling worthless, no good, and in utter terror of losing my job or getting in trouble for something, because up until this point, I had gotten in trouble every single day for the last 2 weeks. Finally, I came into work on August 3rd only to receive an email stating that my supervisor had once again manipulated my time card for the day of June 30th. I didn't even think it was legal for a supervisor to go back and change a time card from over a month ago. As a result of this change, I got an email that HR had consequently backdated all PTO taken between June 30th and now due to the change, which was requested directly by my supervisor. At this point, I get sent into a meeting with my supervisor and hers. During the meeting, I remained as calm and respectful as possible, all the while trying not to break down in tears. I called my supervisor out for time card manipulation, retaliatory behavior, and lack of communication. I even called her out for telling me multiple times to change my time card within a pay period. This lady lied to her boss's face, and what's worse, she was believed. My character and ethics came into question, to which I was told an investigation would be launched. Long story short, by the end of the meeting, and because of her manipulation on my time card, I was at 13 occurrences and was ultimately let go. The revenge came in just a few hours before the meeting, because what my supervisor didn't know is that I had saved every single email between me and my supervisor and taken a screenshot of every Skype conversation. The CEO of the company actually responds to emails and has responded to mine every time. So I explained the retaliatory behavior in an email to the CEO, along with all the emails and screenshots between me and my supervisor. I figured it was a long shot, but I wanted to try. Since I was fired that afternoon, I was unable to access my emails, so I didn't know if she responded. I was fired on Thursday, had an interview with another company on Monday and Tuesday, and yesterday I was offered the position, 1 week to the day that I got fired. This position is a significant salary increase, as well as a normal Monday through Friday schedule. It's incredible how someone that has character flaws manages to get a better job in a week. Earlier today, I got a Facebook message from a former coworker of mine. Apparently, word has gotten around regarding my termination and the email I wrote to the CEO. As a result, my supervisor is no longer there. Not quite sure if it's admin leave or termination, but apparently an investigation is being launched to see if she did this to anyone else. And the CEO sent out a mass email to the entire company with updated policies for reporting retaliation and that supervisors are only allowed to update time cards within the last 2 weeks. I was stunned. That jerk fired me without cause, but I came with receipts and simply returned the favor. Don't touch my stuff. In college, I had a randomly assigned roommate that I did not get along with at all. Our personalities were just on two opposite ends of the personality spectrum, and we clashed. The only things we had in common were that we went to the same college and lived in the same apartment. That's it. Anyways, it was a nightmare living situation. The apartment had 4 rooms and 2 bathrooms. She and I shared the same bathroom as our rooms were next to each other. We had 2 roommates on the other half of the apartment that we both got along with. After over 8 months of just pure passive aggressiveness towards each other, like I would put sticky notes on her days-old dirty dishes and she would put my wet laundry on the floor, she decided to report me to apartment management for bullying her. Honestly, we were doing it to each other. However, the apartment manager took pity on her because I was tall and athletic and she was 6 inches shorter than me and very thin. She claimed I physically intimidated her and she was scared to live with me. She did this because she wanted to move to a new apartment without paying a $500 fee, but instead the apartment issued a written warning. The warning stated that we were not to touch any of each other's personal belongings without written permission. First infraction was a $250 fine, second infraction was a $500 fine, and a third infraction would result in eviction. I was so scared walking out of that office because I could not afford those fines, and she had the biggest smile on her face. I knew that she would immediately report me. I went back to the apartment and she left for work. I was mortified. Then I realized she made a huge mistake. Everything communal in the apartment belonged to me, and she was a super moocher. I told my other roommates what had happened, and they were shocked. I asked if I could use their bathroom temporarily, and they said of course. So I immediately emptied out everything that was mine in our shared bathroom: shower curtain, toilet paper, rug, towels, soap. I grabbed my magnetic whiteboard and listed out everything in the kitchen that belonged to me. Plates, cups, mugs, pots, pans, silverware, coffee maker, toaster, pot holder, towels, literally listed every single item, and said that she is not allowed to use any of it without my written, no text, permission. I also drew some eyes to remind her that everyone was watching. I popped that whiteboard on the fridge and went in my room to do some homework. Later, she came home from work and had a meltdown. She screamed, not any words, just a blood-curdling scream. In the following couple of days, her father came to the apartment to threaten me that they were getting a lawyer. She bought her first roll of toilet paper and a plastic shower curtain, but it was too much for her to handle. She went back to the main office to report my bullying once again and was instead told that she could either deal with it or pay $500 to move to a new apartment. She moved out 7 days after the warning was issued. Have you ever had a roommate that you just couldn't stand? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Entitled Dad runs my foot over. Cast. We've got me, 3rd-year lifeguard. We've got Entitled Dad. He's in a wheelchair. And we've got the kid. Working at a water park exposes you to a lot of crazies. I work at Starbucks now, but I still got more crazies at the water park, though plenty of crazies at Starbucks too. On this particular day, I was guarding our wave pool. Our wave pool is one of the biggest in the state and has a mini attached side pool that's about 3 feet deep and has a little playground so the kids can still experience the waves. The wave pool itself goes to 7 feet, and everyone under 48 inches is required to wear a life jacket. I was specifically guarding the kids area and was the only one guarding it. Important, there were 3 guards on the beach/entrance to the wave pool.
3 guards on each side of the wave pool, and now 2 guards solely watching the deep end. One of the #1 rules of being a lifeguard is that you never ever leave your area, and never ever take your eyes off of your zone. I had just rotated to my spot when Entitled Dad approaches me in his wheelchair and gets my attention. He politely asks if I can retrieve his son from the pool and describes him to me. I'm more than happy to do so for him. I'm standing by Entitled Dad searching for his kid, and he's getting more and more frustrated because I cannot for the life of me find him. I'm actually mildly starting to freak out because I don't see the kid he's describing anywhere. The kids' area isn't big, but there's like 50 kids crawling over the equipment and trying to sneak under the ropes into the big pool, so it's mild chaos. Finally, Entitled Dad points and shouts, "Oh my god, he's right there!" So I follow his hand, and this little twerp is like 100 yards into the big wave pool, floating happily along in his little Ninja Turtles life jacket. I relax because he's okay. I apologize to the Entitled Dad and say, "Unfortunately, I can't swim out there," and tell him it's time to go home because I can't leave my area. But if you'd like to tell one of the guards on the beach, I'm sure they'd be happy to. No, I don't have time for that crap. Just go get him. Me, I really can't leave this area, sir. I need to watch the kids and keep my eyes on this zone. I move away from him to patrol my area and check the equipment, check the water, etc., while this man is shouting at me from the deck. "This is ridiculous. Just go get my kid. You're a jerk, you know that? It's not that hard. Go do your job and get my kid," etc. I round the corner of the playground where he can't see me and whistle for a supervisor because this is above my pay grade at this point. By now, the other lifeguards and parents and kids have noticed and are watching with concern, and I smile and giggle when I get uncomfortable. So I'm hiding a smile when I walk back around, still ignoring Entitled Dad, who's now shouting that I'm not paying attention. "Correct, sir. You're mortifying yourself. I'm not paying attention to you, especially as I already solved your problem, and you're yelling at me." Entitled Dad, "What's your name? I'm going to report you to your personnel department and get you fired." I spot my supervisor running over and move towards him. As I pass Entitled Dad, he gets frustrated that I'm not paying attention to him and uses the beach-like incline to run his wheelchair over my right foot. I yelp and jump back. One of my lifeguards hits the emergency stop button and the waves calm, and my supervisor goes from jogging to sprinting. Entitled Dad, "Listen to me when I'm talking to you. Oh my god. Kid 2, go out and get your brother. This is ridiculous." Long story short, he had another kid that swam out to get his first kid anyway. I got pulled off rotation and sent to the EMT and reassured that I was fine and my job was safe. And my supervisor kicked Entitled Dad out of the park, and now he's banned forever. Sorry, little Ninja Turtles life jacket dude. I'm sure you were just doing your thing. Old lady says I'll be written up for telling her there's no breakfast. So for some background, I work in a senior living home as a server, and I'm a pretty nice person to the residents. But when they start yelling at me, I tend to cry a little, so I don't really confront anyone. We've got the old lady, we've got old lady's fiance, we've got coworker, we've got boss, and me. Story. So in my work, we stop serving breakfast at 1 p.m., and old lady usually comes in with her fiance at around noon to eat breakfast. But on that day, they came in at like 1:05 p.m., and they sat down at the table they always do, and I went to go take their order. Me. "Hey, old lady and old lady's fiance, do you know what you would like? Or would you like some menus?" I asked because I know they didn't know what we have for lunch since they never order lunch. Old lady, "Yes, I would like some pancakes." And me, "Oh, I'm sorry, but we don't serve breakfast after 1 p.m. I'm sorry." Lady, "What? Not even eggs or bacon? Nothing?" Me, "No, I'm sorry, but would you like some menus so you can decide what you'd like?" Old lady and fiance nod, and I get them menus and walk away to clean other tables, and someone else takes their orders. I thought that would be the end. Of course it wasn't, and about an hour later they finished and start heading to the front to pay. That's when the lady sees me walking away from the front to check on other residents. "Are you the first person who talked to me?" "Yes." "So you're the one who told me there was no breakfast, right?" "Yes." "Okay, come with me to look at a menu before you get written up for being rude to a customer." Me, very confused as to what I did wrong, start walking to the table we keep menus on. Okay, opens a menu and holds it in between us. "Right here, it says a la carte. That means I can have breakfast whenever I ask." Me, no. The times on the menu clearly say that we have breakfast specials from 7 to 11 a.m. and regular breakfast from 7 to 1 p.m. "Yeah, but that's up here.
Down here it says a la mode. That means all day.
At this point, she starts kind of berating me.
We have been coming here for breakfast for a while, and we're not going to have some girl telling us, "Oh, you can't have breakfast,"
said in a mocking tone. At this point, another resident came in and was waiting to be waited on. Lady.
Now, do not go around telling people what they can and can't have. I'm going to give you a smile, and you're going to give 3 other people smiles too.
One thing everyone knows about me is I hate being told to smile, no matter the context. I'll smile if I feel like I should.
Now someone just came in. Don't be rude. Don't tell him he can't have breakfast, and smile at him.
She then walked away and acted like nothing happened while getting cashed out by my boss and cousin. In hindsight, I should have went up and talked to my boss right then and there and told her what just happened, but I knew I was just going to cry while explaining it, so I took the other resident's order and went on break when I told my coworker who was there. I cried a little after telling them. We sat there making fun of it and saying things like, "Man, if she wants, she can try to order pancakes for dinner, see how far that goes, and we're not McDonald's, she should get here a bit earlier." One of my coworkers even said I was super nice when explaining that we didn't have breakfast. He said that I didn't even need to say sorry. Anyway, only one of my coworkers seemed upset. He left the room and went back to work. A couple minutes later, he comes back in and hugs me, saying he confronted old lady and told her that she was wrong, and she kept saying that I was super rude to her. I didn't want to give them breakfast because I was lazy. Coworker. Do you want to go talk to boss about it? Our boss is a take no BS from anyone type of person, so she usually tells off the residents when they are crossing the line with us. Old lady.
Oh no, I'm very busy right now.
Coworker. Don't worry, I'll bring boss here. That's when he told our boss, and he stood near so he could hear, and apparently old lady was telling boss that me and coworker were super rude to her. We then started joking about it again when boss comes into the break room and tells us what happened. Boss. So I talked to her about it, and she kept lying, saying that you and coworker were super rude and yelling at her, and that coworker was waving a menu in her face, which I know is a lie, as I can think of some people who would do that, and you two are nowhere near being on that list. She kept saying that a la mode meant all day, and she knows that's what it meant. I told her that's not what it meant, and that it meant 1 by 1 of what we have. Then old lady said that I was lying, and I told her I wasn't because I made the menu 15 years ago, and she just went quiet then. To this day, old lady has not spoken to me unless it's to give me her order for dinner. She never apologized or admitted she was wrong. This isn't the only story I have with her in it. Am I the jerk for refusing to support my Karen niece's lifestyle? My sister and her husband were sent to prison at the start of this year, and sadly won't be released for a few years. That left me to look after their 15-year-old daughter, Amy. I was perfectly happy to do this, but as most of their wealth was seized for being ill-gotten, it's meant that I've been having to take care of her out of my own pocket. Once again, this doesn't bother me, but it's meant massive life changes for the kid. Firstly, they sent her to a private school. I can't afford anywhere near those fees, so I had to transfer her to a local school. She was upset at this at first, but she quickly made friends and is excelling academically, so this isn't a huge problem. She's been off school for the last few months anyway, due to the situation. A bigger problem is clothing. Like my sister, Amy loves fashion and designer stuff. She's still got a lot of stuff that her parents got her, but she's always on the lookout for new clothes. Unfortunately, I can't afford anywhere near the sort of stuff she likes, and I also have 2 kids of my own whose clothing I also have to pay for. I've told my sister this, but she insists I should make allowances because her daughter is going through a tough time. Amy also really doesn't get along with my daughter, Hannah, who is 11. She bullies her, calls her names, tells her none of her friends really like her, etc. She has made her cry on many occasions and often continues to taunt Hannah while she cries. Yesterday, I caught Amy trying to buy a dress costing over $1,000 with my card. I was fuming and had a long conversation with her. She cried and sobbed that she just wanted one nice thing. My sister called me from prison, and Amy cried over the phone that she hates it here, and I treat her unfairly. I spoke to my sister afterwards, and she begged me to go easy on her daughter because she's still adjusting. I put food on this kid's plate. I buy her whatever clothes I can afford, even if they aren't to her taste. I take her to visit her grandparents as much as possible. They're held in different facilities, and I do all of that on top of working and looking after my own kids. I told my sister that I was willing to look after her daughter for as long as she needs, but if anything like the card incident happens again, or if she continues to pick on my daughter, there will be serious consequences for her. My sister wanted to argue, but they get limited time on the prison phone. I think what I'm doing is right. I get that the kid is going through a tough time, and I'm doing everything I can to be there for her. But I just can't tolerate bad behavior or bullying, and I can't afford to pay for her expensive clothing. The fact that she's struggling to deal with what happened to her parents doesn't change that. Well, what do you think? Is OP being fair to her niece or not? Please let us know. Next time, don't get caught when you take her card. Entitled Stepmom demands key to my soon-to-be house. For quick reference, there are 5 people in this event. We've got mom, we've got stepdad, we've got dad, we've got entitled stepmom, and me. Little bit of backstory. My stepmother and I never got along from day one, especially when she turned into more and more entitled stepmom as I got into my later teenage years, and was the reason I moved out of my father's house to live full-time with my mom, despite their custody agreement. Details aren't important, but the list is a hefty one. The important one for this account is snooping. Entitled stepmom has to stick her nose in my life, room, car, job, health, etc. to a comical degree. She has also done some pretty pointlessly petty things, like giving me a false key to her and my dad's house when it got re-keyed, for reasons I still don't understand. This is also important. On to the most recent entitled stepmom moment that happened on 8/11 of 2020. Phone call from entitled stepmom to me. Entitled stepmom: I want a key to your house when it closes. Me: no. Entitled stepmom: What? No? You will give me a key. Me: A key or a fake key? You weren't specific. A real key to your house. Me: And why would I do that, given your track record? Because I'm your parent. Quit being flippant. Me, laughing. Entitled stepmom: I don't see what's so funny. I'm asking for a key, and I will get one. Me: Asking? Entitled stepmom, you are demanding a key of your 25-year-old stepson who owes you nothing. Oh yeah, I'll want my dresser back too, as we agreed upon all those years ago. I'm not giving you the dresser back unless you give me a key. Me: So you're going to steal from me because the dresser couldn't make it up the stairs, and you are throwing a fit because I won't let you snoop? Young man, you have a history of making poor choices, and it's my job to correct them. I couldn't do it while you were in Ohio, and now that you're back, I will get you back on the straight and narrow. I should point out that my poor choices involved eating in my own room while doing homework, watching TV with my girlfriend when I was a teenager, and not going to bed by 10 p.m. She's a nutty conservative Christian woman who gets mad at me for anything that isn't in her micron-sized list of appropriate actions for me. Me: You won't be getting a key, and because of you, Dad won't likely get one either, because you can't be trusted. And ended the call. Not 5 minutes later, my mom and stepdad are rolling on the floor laughing because she had called them, demanding that they talk some sense into me and make me give her a key. Neither my mom nor stepfather can stand my entitled stepmom. Here's where she truly shines for the entitled stepmom though, rather than just being demanding and a snoop. It happened the following day on 8/12/2020. It's important to note I'm gone off my painkillers that I'm on after my back spasms sent me face first into the floor from their strength. Entitled stepmom: Hey OP, have you thought about giving me a key? Me: Nah, you don't get one. Entitled stepmom: Even for your favorite step-parent? Me, hysterical laughter: I like cat poo more than I like you. Fine, you will lose your car. I forbid you from driving, and I'll expect your keys tonight. Me: You want to take the keys to a car that you don't own or pay anything on because you won't take no for an answer? I am your parent. I hung up after she started yelling. She showed up at my mother's house 10 minutes later demanding my keys to my car because she was revoking her permission for me to drive, and we had to call our neighbor, the off-duty cop, to come over and speak to her. I wouldn't be surprised if she tried to put a lien on my car. More insane things have happened. It's so bad that my dad is agreeing that he shouldn't get a key, but won't leave her because of her usual entitled behavior. This is just the most recent in a long list of this kind of behavior. Edit to clear a few things up. I'm a 25-year-old single male.
Imagine you're out of town on a vacation and you find out that your entitled aunt is trying to sell your house. That's exactly what happens in our next video. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.